Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you're here with us today. We have a fantastic new episode for today. Remember, this whole season is Tom's brainchild. And today we're going to talk about pets. So, what are we going to talk about? Well, as far as Tom, what he's told me is we're going to talk about pet ownership, pet psychology, and the intersectionality of human psychology with pet psychology, as well as he was just telling me how he thinks this is really useful for writers, because we're also going to talk about the kind of people who own various pets, like what are their sort of personality profiles. And that can be really useful for writers because you have, like, you can more easily build character profiles. So we're going to talk about all of that and more. And of course, to help me is, you know him, I love him. It's my brother and technical producer and the brainchild of this whole season, Tim.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Tom. Did I do an okay introduction?
Yeah, I think so.
Cool.
Oh, Megan already going for me on technicalities.
Yeah, I think so. Oops, sorry. That was me.
It's not me for once.
It's not, yeah, it's me. I caught it early, though. Kat is here. Hello, hello. Megan is here. Says it's a lovely 78 degrees outside and 50% humidity, but not feeling it. It is 93 degrees and 56% humidity here, and that is not even the peak of the temperature today or any day this week. I think like this week we are expecting highs of like 101, 102. And then with the humidity, it's going to feel more like 115 degrees. It's really dangerous. We used to never get temperatures like this in the 80s until like the last week in July, early first week in August. So Megan wants everyone to know, specifically, I assume you, Tom, wants you to know.
Yeah, as I said, already coming for me on technicalities.
As the pollster, technically my dog is 3-legged, but I voted for 4-legged pets.
Differently limbed,
but 4-legged, cold-blooded, flying, crawly, whatever you got, y'all.
I know, really, if I had more options, I'd be more specific, but
yes, it is a bit of a problem, isn't it?
But I mean, there are so many kinds of pets. As I was, talking earlier last week with Gloria, people, mostly just think of cats, dogs, and then they'll usually branch out a little bit if they remember to birds and fish. And occasionally
there's so many more pets than that.
And there are so many.
People have pet rocks. And that's not just as a paperweight, like I have thought. Because humans can pack bond with anything.
Howdy, howdy.
Hey there. What is it? She looks like she's flying when she runs. Oh, that's so cute. So, but humans can pack bond with anything, including inanimate objects like rocks. Hi, Jules. So, I think it says a lot about pet ownership because really we're talking about human psychology, but because we're also, other than the rock part, we're talking about animal psychology. So what we're really talking about is the intersectionality of neurodivergence. Because if you think about what is neurodivergent, what does neurodivergent mean? All your living pets are neurodivergent from you as a human brain. So I think and in that regard, I think sometimes it's easier for neurodivergent folks to actually understand animals because we're already used to viewing all other humans as different enough that we have to over explain and we have to sort of figure out how to better communicate. Well, it's the same work you got to do with pets because they don't speak the English.
I was going to say, part of the reason I thought about doing this episode was I've known plenty of people who are trepidatious, to say the least. I mean, to be honest, some of them are just straight out scared of any dog or
Or
sometimes
cat.
any cat.
Man, I've seen like there's a whole subculture of fear of house cats.
And there's some who are just scared of any snake.
It's true.
And I was thinking about it, of what do these people have in common? What do I notice about them? You know, the ones who are very trepidatious, who recognize that they are not among the populace. You know, they're actually in the minority on this. And it's, they don't understand the psychology and the behaviors of that animal. So, like, I'm overall pretty comfortable around dogs, even though I had a few traumatizing events with dogs.
You have.
Growing up.
You got bitten by one.
At least one. And let alone chased by, I can't remember
Countless.
how many.
Yes, because of you and your bike.
And
there's several dogs that desperately wanted to like consume Tom's bike piece by piece. And one of them succeeded.
That one we owned.
Yeah. That was the one we owned.
And it's like, oh, I got the bike all to myself all night.
Gonna literally consuming a metal bike, y'all. How? What? How? Why?
But why don't I have problems with them overall? I mean, I still actually have some trepidation around snakes.
Sure. Absolutely.
And it's because I'm not around snakes much. I don't know their behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, one of the things we can talk about, besides what kind of person wants which kind of pets, or at least what makes a good match.
Right.
We can also talk about some of the behaviors and psychology of these pets to maybe help people be a little bit calmer around those types of pets, those species. I mean, one of the things we teach little kids about how to meet dogs is to put your hand out, but flat. We always want...
Well, and also, like, you put it the back of your hand toward them.
We want a wide surface. Now,
so that it's... See, this way, people can be aggressive so dogs can meet that aggression. But if you do it this way, it's very clear to the dog. You can't grab them or, you know, grab their collar or slap them.
And there's a second part to it. Dogs' mouths cannot snap and bite a flat surface on the back.
It's safer this way.
So even if they do decide they don't like you, they're less likely to
be able to do
harm
damage
the
to you.
kid.
But versus they can grab this, they can snap this little fleshy bit here, and then you pull away, and then you're going to have even more damage. But here, especially if you hold it flat, the dog can't, with their muzzle, it can't quite catch anything, and so you're going to be far less damaged. You pull away, and it hasn't been able to latch hold as long as you made your hand very flat.
And that's also why we tend to curve in, or show them to curve in their fingers a little bit too, because again, it's harder for actual, real problems. And that's why we teach them that's how you greet a dog. Because, no, you don't know instantly if this dog wants to meet you.
It's true.
If they will be friendly. Here's how we reduce the negative possibilities. Same thing with cats. We have to teach them of, you don't, just like the dogs, you do not walk at the cat. You get within a short range where they feel comfortable at that distance, and then you put your hand down to their level and you let them approach. Because if you move your hand towards them, they're like, oh, hell no.
Right.
And they will back away, and no, they're not going to...
They won't trust you then. They'll be very wary.
And again, this is about a difference in, psychology of what they understand versus what you understand. Like, one of the best things I think kids can ever learn about dogs, and whether or not they, should try to be interactive, is learning that when dogs sneeze, dogs do not really sneeze much by accident. They have a different air system to breathe, so they actually are far less likely to sneeze. But they do sneeze as an indicator that, hey, I want to play and I'm friendly. And so when a dog sneezes at you, they're not trying to be gross. That's their, come on, let's interact.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get your attention in a positive way.
And in a non-aggressive way, because dogs do not interpret sneezing as aggression.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I want to talk about both sides of who makes a good partner for a specific type of breed or species of pet, and some of their psychologies, so it's easier to interact with them. And so it's not as worrying. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, that is the real uncomfortables people have around the neurodivergence of pets, is we don't know how to predict them. And so that's why I thought, we would come at this. So, okay. Yes, I hope y'all come to learn and share some of your own, like, how do you greet and get to know a snake? The answer is you let the owner introduce the snake to you. They've done this before. They really like snakes. They know the physical signs their snake will make to say it likes this or it doesn't want to do this.
Right.
Versus Glory always loves telling her story about, finally meeting a blue-tongued skink that she understood why some people have them as pets.
Yeah.
Most charming blue-tongued skink ever.
It could smile. It actually smiled. And that's when I fell in love. So beautiful. What an adorable smile. What a beautiful reptile that I never thought I would be into. Because before that, I thought, oh, I'm just not a reptile person, period. No, I just needed to meet the right one. Like blue-tongued skinks, especially since there have been breeding programs for at least 50 years now.
Oh, yeah.
Breeders, it would appear that the breeders of blue-tongued skinks as a species have been, I would say, for the most part, ethical and careful. And so they have bred blue-tongued skinks for personality, which is pretty amazing.
Same with ball pythons.
Yeah. So, like to meet a blue-tongued skink that had a wonderful personality, that really, had been hand-reared with that family for, I think she was like almost 3 years old, which is quite advanced age for a blue-tongued skink. Not like senior citizen, but, it's a fair amount.
Definitely an adult.
Yeah, very much an adult. She was an older lady. I think they said that she was like past middle age.
I thought she was like
older
5.
than all of us in the household by skink years. And I was like, oh, hello, ma'am. And like that. So she was very familiar with how to interact with humans and how to communicate with humans, which was the part that I very much liked. Was like she was very adept at communicating. So yes, she won me over.
And what is it she smiled about so much?
Oh, she loved our concentrated apple juice. We had frozen concentrated apple juice in the freezer. And it was really good stuff. Normally, I'm not into apple juice because I find it very bland. It's gross. However, this particular year of frozen concentrated apple juice from this brand was excellent. It was so good. And so we had extra cans of it in the deep freeze. And we thawed some out for her since she liked apple juice. And she agreed with my taste in apple juice. This is the best apple juice ever. And she smiled. She was so happy. They're like, she hardly ever smiles. She's like, last time she smiled was when she met their younger baby. Because guess what? It turns out everybody loves babies. Even human babies. Everybody loves a baby. Everybody loves baby head smell.
But yeah, like all pets by their nature are going to be neurodivergent, but at the same time, most pets if we keep them as pets, will start to respond in ways we are familiar with because that's what we respond to. And so they will keep doing that to show if they get that response they're looking for. I mean, I have seen playful tarantulas.
Mm-hmm.
Or in Gloria's case, very playful jumping spiders. Which turns out is actually a feature of jumping spiders, that they are rather friendly
They
and
wave
interactive.
at you, not to be aggressive, but to get your attention to play.
And that a lot of people, unlike most pets, jumping spider owners tend to find them around their home or in their area and bring and build them their own little jumping course and little gyms to play around and have fun with. And then they'll just stay around of like, oh no, this is fun, this works.
Mm-hmm. Jumping spiders are surprisingly social with humans and even with other animals. They are just playful by nature, which I just find fascinating.
Now that you've, gotten over the...
So what happened was I lived in this very old house. The house was like moved to its present location in the 1880s. So it was even older than that, and so it was all wood, right? And the frame of the house had petrified years ago, which that's a whole nother story. But anyway, so the whole house is wood. It's all wood. There's no insulation in it because it's so old. And because it was all wood, it very much attracted jumping spiders because jumping spiders normally live in woodland areas. They live in forests and woods. So every time I'd sit down at my computer to work, I'd sit at my desk and I'd work. In the summertime in particular, the smell of wood, as the wood in the house heated up in this heat, as we've just discussed, the whole house would really smell of woods. And not like the floor of the woods, which is really more like leaf mold, just smell of hot trees, I guess is just really what I'm trying to get at. And that was a very attractive smell to jumping spiders. So jumping spiders, little baby ones, they're black with little white polka dots. They're really cute, honestly. And they're slightly furry. It's hard to see when they're little babies. Well, not babies, but they're first year. And when I would work, I would be doing bookkeeping. I would be doing graphic design. This was this time period when I was doing international shoe catalogs, designing and making catalogs for companies that were trying to sell to American shoe distributors. And y'all know I have ADHD. I was hyper-focused on my work. And then, at some point, even with hyper-focus, like say 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes, you take a break, right? You sit back. And it is in that moment, all the time, I'd sit back and look, and I would then spot 2 or 3 of these little spiders that had been watching me at my keyboard the whole time. And I go, oh! And then they would go, oh! And I'm like, ah! And they would go, ah! And I go, 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 go. And they're like, go, go, go? Oh, they were trying to play, y'all, but I was just like, ah! I'd lift them on little paper, put them outside, put them by the window, whatever. They're like, no. I swear some of them came back more than once.
And then there was the ones at the little local library you worked at.
Yeah, I don't know how the YA section developed the same jumping spiders, the black with the white polka dot jumping spiders. But when I would be down in the YA section shelving, and again, y'all know me, I get hyper-focused. I'm concentrating on the spine labels because it's 2 levels of coding, and I've got to match it and get it in just the right order, and I'm dyslexic, so I'm definitely concentrating. And then, I'd sit back after doing, say, a couple stacks, or a couple shelves, really, in a stack. sit back for a minute, and then that's when like I was like, oh, and then spiders would go, oh, hi, you've noticed me, hello. Like, no, you must not be here. And they're like, no, you must not be here. Now you're mocking me. And they're like, and just like say one, they go, now you're mocking me. They're little adorable mimics. But I was like, why? And they're like, why?
I mean, they are essentially little 2-year-olds.
And I'm like, if you stay here, they're going to exterminate you. And they're like, no. Okay, anyway. So I'm like getting paper and moving them outside. You'll die out here. Here, let me put you outside in the garden.
I just suspected they, since it was the young adult section, they were coming in on backpacks.
I see. Yeah, I think so too. I think that's why, because they didn't expand out to like say the large print section, which was relatively close, or even the DVD section. They didn't expand out there, or the reference books, the encyclopedia on the other side. They didn't expand out to that. It was just the YA section. So I figured they were coming in on backpacks. But yes, they're little mimics of like stop. And they're like stop. No, fine, get on the paper. And I'd have to tap the paper so they'd get on the paper and take them out to the rose garden.
Yes.
But it did help that by that point, Tom and I had done a lot of research about these particular spiders, of why do these spiders mock me all the time and find out, no, they're trying to play. I had even talked to local USDA agents about this, and they're like, oh, we're familiar. Yeah, they're harmless. They won't bite you or anything. They're adorable. The little black and white polka dot ones. Yeah, they're fine. I'm like, why do they like all the time wave at me when they're like, oh, they're just trying to play. I'm like, that's not a thing. They're like, it is a thing among these spiders. Yes. So if you ever happen to see these black spiders with tiny little white dots on them, and they woo at you, they are just trying to play. Just get them. Just show them the paper. Get on the paper. Top the paper. Get on the paper, and then take them outside. They really are absolutely harmless. They cannot hurt you. They will not hurt you. They just want to play, and you're the nearest thing in town.
Yes, I still remember hearing as you would try to escape them, and they would jump to keep pace with you.
They would try to jump across my desk and onto my photocopier and onto my file cabinet trying to keep pace with me. Because they thought that it was like a run and chase thing.
But again, welcome to, they're a little neurodivergent.
And they got in my car. And on a car ride, they crawled up to like make sure I saw them and they wanted to play. Like, nah! It was a bigger one too, y'all. It was like, is that a tarantula? What is that? They look actually, they look tiny, kind of like little tiny tarantulas, and that they're furry, but they are not tarantulas.
Yeah. But they do look like just the tiniest tarantulas.
So, shall we get into the general human personalities that match well with various species?
Yeah. I mean, I guess first off, shall we talk about, the perennial favorites?
What?
Is it dogs and the cats? They go back and forth over who is considered best.
Oh, I do not think one, like dogs or cat ownership is better over the other.
I just mean like their popularity goes back and forth. Like they shift back and forth which one is the pet du jour. And it really just depends on the decade. But I mean, dogs are definitely the one of when you want constant, regular interaction. I mean, some countries though are starting to say like if you work and there's no one home, you really do need to get your dog a buddy. because they too are highly social and they need someone to play with and to be with.
Having a dog is very similar to having a toddler. So, if you are interested in having a child one day, a dog is a great way to see if you are ready for children, if that is something you're interested in.
Yeah.
Or if you already have children and you think that you're doing fine, sure. But you don't want to have another literal human child for whatever the reason. A dog is another way to always have a permanent baby. And I know some people who that is literally why they got, like, say, a golden retriever. It's like always having a baby, which that's fine if that is what you want. But like, to be aware that dog ownership is very similar to having children, having small children. So your dog will never stop being a toddler. They're never going to age above, say, 4 years old. Some people find that exhausting. Some people really do not care for the toddler stage in childhood. It just depends on the person. So I would definitely say be aware of that. Of like, if you've never met a toddler you like, dog ownership may not be for you. Because dog ownership is definitely like raising a child. So when I say that, I mean, like, okay, once upon a time back, so we, the next town over had a dog park. And we used to go all the time. We'd take Cassie there. Cassie loved it. And there was a dog there that was a regular called Scout. And then somebody else showed up with a Boston Terrier who was also named Scout. But the owner never called him Scout. She only called him Bad Scout. And he thought that was his name. She said Bad Scout so many times that if you said, Scout, come here, Scout, he did not come. But if you said, come here, Bad Scout, he would come. She said Bad Scout so often, he thought that was his name and not Scout. Bad Scout. No, don't do that. Bad Scout. No, Bad Scout. He thought it was his name, y'all. So, number one, she was definitely not effectively communicating with this dog. And number two, she was always saying this negative thing rather than either accepting him for who he is, which is a very rough and tumble type dog. He was
with so much energy.
Really sweet, energetic little Boston Terrier who all the time was rolling in mud and then rolling in the dog's water, because the dogs had a water fountain of their own. And he was always rolling the dog water fountain and getting it dirty, and then everyone would have to go in there and clean it. To the point that eventually someone brought a scrub brush and just left it on the fence. So you just, anytime Scout went to go bathe in the water fountain, you could just clean it out. And nobody else was mad at Scout. Everybody understood he's a puppy. Well, he wasn't a puppy anymore, but I mean, he wasn't like 2 years old.
He was still a puppy, and then he was a teenager.
He was an older puppy. But like 2 years old is still puppy age. And he was very much a rambunctious kid. It was like, why yell at a child for just being a rambunctious kid? Same for why yell at a dog for being a rambunctious dog. Like, this is just who they are. This is their personality. Cassie could be rambunctious, but for the most part, when she was around humans, she behaved more like humans. And when she was around dogs, she behaved more like dogs. She was adaptive, but Scout was not. Scout was just always Scout. And that was fine. Cassie loved playing with Scout. But she also knew better than to get in that water fountain. Oh, the moment like Scout would get into the water fountain to go like rinse himself off, she would be standing next to him, and like you could see that she wanted to, but then she'd look at me and I'm like, don't you do it. She's like, okay. Versus Scout, just get in there. But it was in part because I had trained Cassie of, if you're not sure what to do, look to me. And I will then direct you. So we had that relationship, and Scout's owner had not established that kind of relationship with Scout. She was just all the time exclaiming at him. So I would say, and we all the other dog owners tried to talk to her about maybe Scout is not the right pet for you. You seem like somebody who either needs a senior dog or a cat or something else, but not a dog, because Scout was just being a dog and she was all the time yelling at him, all the time telling him he was being bad, when no, he's just being a dog. They're all like that. I mean, every time Cassie would come home from the dog park, I would have to at least rinse her little paws, if not her whole body, because she'd been rolling and God knows what. But that's how dogs are. They love to like layer the scents on. It's just, I have to sleep with this dog.
Don't you love all the smells?
Her crate was in my bedroom. And like, no, I do not want to smell rotting bird all the time. So guess what? You get in a bath right there in the sink. And, you know, she knew it. And I'm like, I know you had a wonderful time. And that's why I would take her there every day to every other day, even though I would then have to bathe her. Because so that she could have that time to just be a dog and have her good time. But also, like, no, you live in my house and I don't want you to reek like this. I cannot handle this.
ABA.
So that is what I would say about dog ownership. If you have never met a toddler that you actually enjoyed doing dumb things with, because let's be honest, toddlers are like sober, drunk little humans all the time. And that's kind of what dogs are like, honestly, you know? And if you're not into that, then maybe dog ownership isn't for you. It's totally fine. And maybe you only like dogs and you're not into human toddlers. And again, I would say maybe it's that you haven't met parents that you care for. Because if you're like, I've never met a toddler I like, but I like dogs, then you just haven't met people who parent that much. Because a lot of people just don't parent their toddlers. And I say that as somebody who spent 10 years working as a nanny and a babysitter and an au pair. And a lot of people do not parent their toddlers. They just allow them to run loose. And then around age 5 or 6, suddenly the hand comes down and then they start being harsh to their children. And it is a very traumatic wake-up call for their kid, because they haven't been raising their toddler the whole time on, like, how do we pick up after ourselves? How do we be kind to others? How do we share with others? That is when you teach it, as while they're toddlers, not when they're in elementary school. If you're trying to teach in elementary school, it's already too late. You teach how to be a compassionate, kind, social human being when they are toddlers. And frankly, that's what you teach dogs too. It is like you teach dogs between the ages of 12 weeks old and 24 weeks old how to be friendly with humans and how to be friendly with fellow dogs.
And cats.
And cats. And if you miss this window, the window does not really come back. You can kind of train them, but you're always going to have to be very much on them the whole time, versus if you're able to catch that window, yeah, you don't have to worry about them when you're not around. They'll do as they're told. As you train them. And frankly, human children are very similar. And I honestly think, so there's this theory currently going around that dogs domesticated themselves in order to get access to human food, and that humans domesticated ourselves by cooking our food. And that possibly dogs domesticated humans, for real. This theory is going around, and it's not necessarily wrong. But that, in fact, yes, wolves may have domesticated humans to cook more food.
Which, you know, if you've seen a dog at a cookout,
yeah,
you can definitely see the origins of.
So yeah, there is a theory that some wolves loved fire cooked meat so much, and even fire cooked porridge so much, that they helped domesticate humans so they would cook and share more food. And it's not necessarily wrong, but and where this is coming from is actually DNA analysis. So there are things that we can actually figure out from human and canine genomes that are like traveling back in time. They'll actually tell us how long ago this change was made, how many tens or hundreds of thousands of years ago in our DNA did, say, for instance, did humans lose the ability to eat raw meat? So, and when I say that, what is that? So, you need certain enzymes in your gut in order to be able to fully digest raw meat. I'm not saying humans don't eat raw meat now, but I'm saying their bodies are not able to extract the full complement of nutrients the way dogs still have the ability to eat raw meat and extract that. However, by the way, modern dog breeds, for the most part, do not have this ability because they have domesticated themselves to have cooked meat. I just think that's so adorable that essentially wolves domesticated themselves and humans at the same time in order to get access to more fire roasted meat.
And if you're wondering, but how could this happen? Here, real simple. You know this has happened. You've seen it happen. Dog, person throws, dog makes puppy eyes. Full-grown dog makes puppy eyes from outside range of the fire. Someone goes, it looks really cute. Throws him some meat. And dog's like, oh, this is really good. Dog leaves the area and then shows back up holding a puppy or two, going, can you feed them too?
Cats do that too. I've seen some videos of that.
And some humans, because of,
pack bonding
and, the adorable factor.
Oh gosh, we are suckers for cuteness.
Will then throw them meat, and so begins this relationship of, if you look cute at me enough, I will give you some food.
Yes.
And that is where the domestication starts. Of the, I like what you've got. What do I need to do to keep getting more?
Right.
And then you also don't need as strong features to be wild anymore. And so
the cuter ears come in, the cuter snout, the bigger eyes, specifically. Okay, so the reason, so look at my eyes. Let me do this. Okay. All right. Do you see how you can see so much of the white of my eyes? That is a specific human trait to be able to read facial expressions. So one of the things that we've noticed is that wolves have very little visible white in their eyes, but dogs have much more visible white. Dogs, and it's not that certain dog breeds do, it's that dogs, in the process of domesticating themselves, the ones that were getting more food from humans were in part the ones where humans could read their facial expressions better, i.e., among other things, they had more white in their eyes to show. So, and the reason why the white of eyes is important is, like, watch. If I squint at you, there's a visible reduction in the white of my eyes. Versus if I'm happy to see you, it's a different look of the whites of my eyes. So the white of my eyes actually communicates a lot of my emotional state to you. So you can perceive, are you safe? Am I open to conversation or communication of some kind? Dogs read that as well, but wolves do not read that.
Also,
so they have developed more white. Dogs have developed far more white, even, just general canine, not like dog breeds, on purpose, both for humans as well as now dogs have learned to read the whites of human and dog eyes.
Also eyebrows.
Yes, even though.
So that's like dogs. Dogs have actually in their domestication developed eyebrows. Wolves really don't have much eyebrow.
They cannot even move that. Ability. They really cannot express with those. But like, you've ever seen a Rottweiler or a dachshund, then you have noticed eyebrows, because while it may not necessarily be colored like eyebrows, they do move them as part of that facial expression.
And mimicking the facial expressions of the humans that had them when they were puppies.
But now we're actually seeing cats developing eyebrows. Domestic house cats are in the process, since, they're much more recently being domesticated.
And they are only semi-domesticated.
Yeah, like there were no house cats of any nature 8,000 years ago, as far as we can tell. I think like the first, the first sweetie in Egypt was like 6,000 or 4,500 years.
I
It
think
was
it's
not.
only 4,500. Like it's
Yeah. So the first time a cat has ever been written about as like a house cat was it was translated in an Egyptian to it was called Sweetie, which I'm like, of course, of course. But cats also do not have like wild cats, and the cats that we actually think house cats are descended from, which are the sand cat, which is if you have looked this up, is the cutest dang little cat. It's a wild cat. Oh my god, y'all. Do you want to see me melt? Show me a video of these little sand cats. They're so dang adorable hunting. They are one of the fiercest feline hunters on the planet. They have like an amazing kill rate. Like seriously, Doom ain't got nothing on them. Duke Nukem for the birds. This little sand cat, I think it's like, what is it? Like a 70 to 85% kill rate?
yeah.
Like it is amazing. And also their little kittens. Oh my god. But anyway, they do not have eyebrows. However, and they've noticed this over the last about 1,000 years, house cats all over the planet have been developing the ability to move the part of their forehead that we would consider eyebrows. So cats are also domesticating themselves further to better communicate with facial expressions to humans, since that is one of the ways we humans communicate. So cats are also learning, therefore, to learn to recognize our eyebrows as well as the rest of our facial features as we move them around to indicate emotional states and if we are open to interaction and what kinds of interaction and if we want to play and so on. So they're paying attention, and they too are also evolving eyebrows, which is pretty amazing.
Verse also, though, at the same time, our ability to study animals and not be quite so human-centric in our concepts of, you know, what we're looking for in behaviors of animals has shown us that cats are definitely more intelligent and aware of humans than we previously thought. You know, you talk about how, you know, you can't train a cat to do tricks and, you know, all this stuff. Like, they're not like dogs. They are not like dogs. But
they're cats.
They do understand words. They know their names, even if they don't respond to them. They, you know, a recent study showed cats know the names of their cat friends that humans use.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about some, you know, another cat, they know who you're talking about, and they have opinions. That, you know, cats, just like dogs, actually do have a lot of the same capacities, but they respond differently. Again, they are neurodivergent than neurotypical humans. And so you have to learn to look for their behaviors. Cats do not use their eyes as much to denote attention. They, like horses, use their ears far more. So it's, if you want to see what a cat's really thinking about or paying attention to, where are its ears turned towards? That is what it's really paying attention to. Also, cat eyesight is not the same as dogs or humans. Their eyesight is for a far distance range. At closer than a foot, they are all farsighted, and they can't really see much. They rely then on their sense of smell and their whiskers. That's part of the reason why they really have those whiskers. And so that's also why they'll be like, you know, oh, my food bowl is empty when it's only half eaten. And that's because the bowl edges are touching their whiskers. And so they can't actually reach comfortably the food on the edges of the bowl. So actually for cat food, they are now, well, to feed cats, they're recommending not so much bowls as plates.
Even though cats
they like to throw it everywhere.
Oh, God. So messy. I did not want to walk on kibble.
And then they look at you like, why'd you walk on that?
Why'd you walk on my food? Now I'm not going to eat it. It's like,
I was saving that for later.
So cat ownership. Who should own a cat, Tom? This is more of your field. I have owned cats, by the way. But I really personally, my way of interacting with cats is they are more like decorative house statues that I feed. Like obviously cats like me because it turned out my favorite cat was escaping out of my house every day while I was at work and like having adventures and then Ferris Buellering her way back into the house every day to beat me there as I'm parking the car. She's like sneaking back into the house with like secret passageways. So it turns out she actually was voluntarily there and I hadn't like trapped her or caged her. It turns out she was voluntarily like living with me.
Cats, I
But
would say like the number one usage of a cat is for people who are dealing with a bit of anxiety. They are for people who are not.
yeah, that was the rule. That was the original reason I'd gotten the cat years before was I would hear noises. You know, every house makes noises. Every apartment makes noises. And it was creeping me out. And a friend of mine had recommended, well, why don't you get a cat? A cat will alert you if somebody is in the house. But also if the cat doesn't care, then you don't need to care either because trust me.
Also, if the cat's not there, you can just blame the cat for making that sound.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, that works. Of like, yeah, you could just blame every time you hear a noise. If the cat is there, you can see, is the cat doing anything? If the cat's ignoring it, then obviously it is not an important noise because cats are really only interested in noises made by living things. And if the cat is not there, then obviously the cat is the one making the noise. Stop knocking shit down. I'm going back to sleep. You know, that kind of thing.
So I mean, they're definitely there again for security, just like dogs, but they're a different kind. Also, they are definitely overall lower cost than dogs, because in part just because they are simply smaller. They require less food. They require less water. They require less maintenance things. Also, the part of where you don't have to take them out for walks like dogs to, empty their bladder and everything.
They don't require as much daily maintenance. Although, yeah, they have a litter box if you've litter trained your cat. And some people have toilet trained their cat, which is still wild to me, but okay.
Although now they have some really cool, like also training devices for the toilet bowl, which is really cool, where it just has a little bit of litter around. And the cat, I do like that part.
Yeah.
And yes, it is safe for septic systems and for sewer treatment. For cat feces to be flushed and urine, it's just you don't want to flush the clay. That part is not really flushable. The systems are not designed to handle clay, especially expanding clay. Yeah. So that's why they say don't flush kitty litter.
Although now they're really recommending against using clay for cats since it turns out it gives them respiratory issues. So
yeah. Versus, like the pine and newspaper ones are just another paper product. Everything, it's built to handle.
Yes, and do not let anyone tell you not to use less paper. Look, y'all, paper and paper products are a renewable resource. The state of Mississippi alone has enough pulpwood trees available for 60 years for the entire planet. We are all fine. So you don't need to scrimp on how much toilet paper you use, unless we're talking about you're flushing your pipe system. Maybe you can't handle that, but that's not. Don't worry about the environment. The environment is happy to grow the trees. Don't worry. The state of Mississippi alone is growing enough trees for the whole planet for pulpwood purposes. So
yeah,
do not sweat it. This whole, you're wasting the environment using toilet paper. How dare you? I want a dry butt.
I mean, but at the same time, bidets are a wonderful thing. If you need advice on setting up your own bidet in your bathroom, contact us. We'll be more than happy to walk you through it. It's very simple, and they're wonderful. It truly keeps you very clean.
Focus time.
But go back to cats. But cats are similar to what you want for a dog, but you're looking for lower cost. So also then you can have multiple cats, hence, where the cat lady trope comes from, because it is less financially difficult to keep 2 or 3 cats than it is 2 or 3 dogs, let alone 2 or 3 medium or large size dogs. A large dog eats 2 to 3 times as much as a human. Like, they eat a lot of food. I mean, don't forget, how big were those bags for that, what was that dog? Mastiff?
It was a Mastiff, yeah.
It was a puppy, and it's eating, I don't know how many pounds of food per day.
It was several pounds of dry kibble per day. They would have, every month, they'd have to go to the co-op and take the pickup truck, and they would load up the back of the pickup truck with bags of food.
And that was just for one
That was
Mastiff.
for one Mastiff. Yeah.
Versus a cat, in general, cats are going to be somewhere between 8 to 18 pounds, depending on breed and how much you're feeding them. And so they're going to eat, in general, at most, about a cup of food a day, about 8 ounces at most. And they'll be happy and fine. And yeah, they do look after themselves a bit more. They do not require as much, constant interaction and taken care of. They can stay inside a bit easier for longer periods of time. Again, though, have them have a friend there, whether it's a dog or another cat or someone. Pets are social creatures. They need something to socialize with always. Case in point, Glory's cat, who was, by all accounts, an excellent hunter and assassin, if slightly, psychotic in a cat way about playing with her food.
Well, she never ate it. She never ate any of the mice or toads. Well, she did eat that one toad. Oh, God.
Yeah. But versus she recognized and liked pets as well.
Yeah,
and
she recognized. When I got Andy back, I already had a hamster at that point, Slick Willie.
Later, Slick Wilhelmina.
Yeah. Well. And but like, I had a hamster ball, and I'd let the hamster go out into the hamster ball for about a half hour a day to get that exercise, because I couldn't afford a really big hamster cage. But animals, they need their exercise. So I put her in the hamster ball. And Andy, very quickly, once I got Andy back, Andy would play with the hamster, where the hamster would chase Andy. And that sounds like I'm making it up, but I'm not. Andy would, see the hamster in the ball in the living room, come over and sort of like let the hamster get a good whiff, and Andy would get a whiff of the hamster, because the ball has like slits open. And then Andy would walk a couple steps away from the hamster ball, but within visual range of whichever way the hamster was facing. And then the hamster would then start the ball rolling toward Andy, and Andy would wait till the hamster ball almost caught her, then she'd go and run off. And and then they would just keep doing this sort of very short little run for, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, till the hamster got tired, and then the hamster would stop chasing, so Andy would wait, and till the hamster caught her breath. And they would do this every day.
Mm-hmm.
And this was how they had a good time. And I thought, this was only because the hamster was in the hamster ball. One day, the hamster got out.
Like hamsters do.
The hamster escaped. Oh, it was like Hogan's Heroes. She had been chewing this one little spot that she had obscured with like her hamster toys and her hamster cage. She chewed it, and then so she could escape. And I was like, oh, well, I guess that's the end. And she later got back. She later, like, showed up in the living room, and Andy was there with me. And I was so sure Andy was going to pounce on her because she was such a good mouser. She'd originally been a feral kitten, and she was a very good mouser. And instead, she jumped down, and they sniffed each other, and Andy then looked at me like, meow, and then literally, meow. I'm like, is that you, Slick? And Slick's like, what do I have to do?
I want my food back.
Right? So I carefully walked over and picked Slick up. I'm like, you ready to go back in? And Andy followed me, like, into the room where I kept the hamster cage. Because hamsters are nocturnal creatures. And so they're very loud at night. And I cannot handle the sound of a hamster doing hamstery things in my bedroom. So the hamster had to be in a separate room. So the hamster was in my office. And Andy was like, yeah. And Andy then just sat there next to the hamster cage with the hamster in it, doing her hamster things, eating her hamster food. Yes, I did give her a few extra sunflower seeds. And like keeping watch, like, now don't get out again. And honestly, I couldn't afford a new cage, so I had just sort of blocked that spot. But it turns out the hamster was like, yeah, I'm never doing that again. It was wild out there. And so she could have escaped any time. She chose not to. Let's be perfectly honest. She was like, forget it. It's better to live in here.
Yes. All right. I think it is time for a little bit of a break.
Well, we have a lovely new timer that Jules made of a farting corgi.
Seems very appropriate.
So I hope you will all enjoy it. And again, I would like to, just point out, do you have something to drink? Is it snack time? It may be snack time in your neck of the woods. And now would be a wonderful time to check in with your bladder, to maybe get something to drink.
By the way, I finished the poll.
Uh-huh.
And it is pretty much the same answers for Americans normally have for pets.
63% believe the four-legged kind of pet is the coolest type. 27% believe the flying kind is the coolest type. And 9% believe the cold-blooded type is the coolest type. And 0% believe the crawly type is the coolest type. So with that, we are going to take a little bio break. And we will see you back here in approximately 10 minutes. Bibbidi-beep. Bibbidi-beep, bibbidi-beep, bibbidi-beep. Bibbidi-beep. Hello, Tom.
Hello again.
Fancy meeting you here.
Hey, CB.
Hello.
Yeah, moving a living room around is one way to truly get that workout.
Tom put another poll in the chat. What was your commitment?
And I mean it the way I said it, because you know what? I have known people who really do just say, "Come here, cat." I'm like, look, she ain't gonna respond to a name. I ain't gonna give her one. She's just had to learn to respond to me.
So, I think the reason why so many people say that cats make excellent pets for writers is because cats, particularly if you have more than one cat or pet, cats can go many hours without human interaction. Because they're very satisfied with just watching you from some vantage point in your room that you're in. Hence why I call cats movable home decorations.
Yeah, cats don't require as much direct interaction like dogs do.
Versus good luck going even 3 hours without interacting with a dog in your house. Good luck. I applaud you if you can do it. Fair. Fair. Jules says, managed to get some rough cuts done for this round of video editing. The corgi is working some magic here. Excellent. Yes, we very much enjoy the farting corgi. Tom came in my room to discuss the farting corgi during the sprint. And then we shared stories of when my dog used to fart. And blame humans every time. Like, human, why are you making this place smell so bad? You didn't even say, excuse me. And it's like, look, you little old lady, you did that, not me. She's like, no, not I. Not my booty. My booty smells great. This smells like you. Like, no. Listen here, you little wiener.
She would wake herself up in the middle of the night from a fart and then harumph at the human she was sharing a bed with.
Like, yeah, like literally half jump on the human. Like, hey, you made a stinky. Like, no, you made a stinky. I was awake still reading my book. Dogs are hilarious. But again, like, as long as the cat can see you, the cat is pretty much okay. So writers can, like, kind of really get into their world uninterrupted for often several hours. And most writers talk about only writing, like, uninterrupted for 2 to 4 hours. Yeah. Which is sort of perfect for cat attention span. If they can, like, if they're in your room while you're working and they can see you, they're very satisfied with that for several hours. So when you get up, you know, after say 2 to 4 hours, go get yourself something else to drink or use the restroom, and then, you know, you walk by them and you patch them a little or scratch their ears or something. They're very happy with that. But with a dog, now you got to spend 5 to 20 minutes with them because you've ignored them for 2 whole hours. So, which is not to say that you can't be a good writer and have a dog. Like, yes, you can. I did it. Although every time I tried to type, Cassie was sure that it was because I hadn't realized I could pet her. And she would get in right against, like, onto my right thigh and get her little head in the crook of my arm while I'm typing. and then nudge it out. Nudge my whole arm out because I should be petting her, not putting my hand on the keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
So good luck. And I realized it was because when Cassie was a puppy, I did not have her next to me while writing, so I did not train her on how to be quiet while I typed. And that's on me. I didn't think about it, but now, yeah, for the next dog, I will definitely train them to just sit there quietly next to me while I type. So again, it's thinking about what works for you, what you like. See, like there are people who own dogs who just feel like a cat would not offer them enough interactions. And I get that. And that's one of the things we wanted to address here today is figuring out the right kind of pet for you. And that is why we do acknowledge that, yes, you can have a pet rock. Because some people, that's all they can manage. But you can also have a plant. And again, that's something that some people can't even manage that. I'm just saying. There's some people that really... Wait, they need to be watered daily? What? Weekly?
And plants, you do have to be more aware of, because plants are not going to tell you, make you interact with them. So if something's going wrong with them, you have to notice. So it actually can be, it does depend specifically on what are your strengths and weaknesses, and what is a pet that lines up with them. Like I was just thinking, because of the farting corgi, and we were talking about, of another pet I've seen a lot of people have, but does require a specific type of owner, are what's the genus? Musculid.
You mean like weasels and ferrets?
Ferrets, stoats. They're always playful. They do not require, though, you to play with them as much, because you can just give them a play area. But also they require people who do not have as good a sense of smell.
Yeah.
I mean, they claim they can smell just as well as anyone else, but no, they can't. Like, you can test this. But if you don't have a great sense of smell, if you are more interested in the texture of your food, musculids can also be a good option for you.
True.
Again, you don't have to interact with them even daily. You can have multiple ones of them. They are not as expensive overall to run, but they are still mammalian, and so they have more direct mammalian interactions, especially when you raise them from kits.
Yeah, it's true. They are fun to play with. I will admit that. As much as I have a very sensitive sense of smell, and so it's kind of torturous for me to be around musculids because, oh God, even the ones that have been degland have a smell.
Yes.
So this whole, you just have the glands removed and then they don't smell anything. Honey, they still smell. And it is very potent to me. However, I'll say when I visited houses with musculids, even the degland kind, and while yes, there is still a very distinct and overpowering aroma, they can be super fun to play with. Like, I will admit this, of like, I still afterwards have to go outside and get a breath of fresh air or 12.
So to us, at least, musculids are better where they have sort of a separate home that's, still semi-air conditioned, depending on how hot it gets. But one with a separate system.
Most people do not have my very acute sense of smell.
Yeah.
So you'd probably be fine. It's just something to be aware of if you do have a sensitive sense of smell.
Versus
that is definitely not for you then.
Rodents are, depending on their size, are not as interactive. But if you want just a small pet to take care of, they work well. Versus rats are very personal. They are essentially even smaller than cats, but
They're very similar to cats, though, in personality.
Very intelligent.
Um,
They really like being tickled and
Yeah.
played with.
They like playing hide and seek.
They like playing hide and seek. They really like playing hide and seek.
They now have these little cars that the rats can drive, and they love riding those little cars around while being chased by humans. It is apparently a thing. I've read several studies about this, and that is one of the ways they know that rats love playing hide and seek.
All right, so one of the things that dogs have the benefit of that rats don't is that we have a separate word for wild dogs, aka wolves. And also just, we'll say it's a wild dog versus domesticated house dogs. They're just dogs versus rats are just always called rats. They're not called wild rats when they're
or feral rats.
Even though they are so different than fancy rats that people actually raise as pets. They are a very different creature. They act very differently than their wild cousins.
Yes.
Let alone the truly feral, undomesticated ones are an entirely different mental headspace.
Yes.
But again, it depends on the person who, likes them and what it is you like. Versus mice and hamsters and the like are not one you're going to interact with that much. You can if you work at it, but not all of them even like to interact with humans. Like sometimes the size difference is too much for them. So it's more of at a certain size, do you like terrariums? Do you like making little model areas for something to play in? And that is what small, very small pets of all varieties, whether it's, warm-blooded, cold-blooded, insect, at a certain size, it's not as much to now play with as it is to make something visually interesting to watch how they behave and what they do. And also, they are less interactive. So it is easier to set things up so that you can leave pets in terrariums alone for an extended weekend, and you'll be fine.
I don't think you could do that with guinea pigs, because I think they need frequent feeding, and you can't give them a bunch of food at once, from what I understand.
Although, guinea pigs are at the rat size that is, and rabbit size.
They're very big. Have you seen some of them are
they are a bit. They are on the larger side. They are not as much for terrarium as they are interactive pets.
Versus, yes, you can feed a hamster, give them extra food for the weekend, and then they're fine all weekend. What they're going to do is they're going to bury that food and then slowly eat it. So, you just give them extra seeds and stuff, unshelled seeds, and then they'll be okay all weekend. They'll be okay.
Guinea pigs, pretty much anything guinea pig size and bigger needs someone there on a daily basis to take care of them. And check in on them.
Now, cats, it does depend on the cat personality, but especially if you have multiple cats, if you've got one of those automatic litter box machines and the automatic food dispenser and the water fountain, they're good for a weekend, especially if they have other cats to keep them company. And then they've got their water. They've got enough water for the weekend, and it's circulating because cats like filtered water, and it's better for them.
They need fresh, aerated water.
And you've got one of those automatic litter boxes that self-cleans. And you've got one of those automatic feeders so they don't overeat. Yeah, they're fine for the weekend. I wouldn't recommend leaving them for a week. They do need somebody to come in at least and monitor them. Plus, let's be honest, even the most antisocial cat likes to at least know humans are around and they're not just locked in a big cage, i.e. your house.
So you leave most cats alone for a week, they're going to break some stuff just out of annoyance and frustration.
Yeah. But yes, you can, if you have the equipment, it is possible to leave, especially if you have multiple cats. So one cat alone in a house for a weekend is kind of cruel, but multiple cats, and everything is automated and there's enough for everybody, and you don't have an issue with like one cat eating all the food of the other cat or something like that, then yeah, it's fine.
But like, a lot of lizards you can leave alone for an extended weekend by just feeding them a bunch one day. They don't need necessarily truly every day.
Same with snakes. You can, a bunch of snakes you only feed once a week anyway, or only twice a week. So yes, again, you can leave them for the weekend. It would depend. You would need to do some research about this.
And so
Also,
again,
I gotta be honest though, everyone I know who's ever owned a corn snake did not leave their corn snake for the weekend. They would pocket their corn snake. It's the reason I knew that several women wore sports bras was just so they could like smuggle their corn snake across state lines and keep them in their hotel room and just always keep them on them, which that's a wild ride, y'all. Especially if you're going away for a weekend with a friend for a tea party, and then you're like, oh, what is this? Why does your sports bra have lumps? And they're like, oh, I forgot, I brought my corn snake with me. Like, I am not in a romantic mood right now. We could just watch a movie. No. Also, you smell of snake. No. You should have warned me. I didn't realize we were bringing pets.
I would say, look, we talked this over the past week, and we both kind of agree. If you are really into snakes, also snakes tend to not be something people are interested in across their entire lifespan. Usually there's a time frame people are interested in snakes, and it's usually between when they're teenagers and early to mid 30s. So be careful of much longer lived snakes than that. You may not want the snake anymore, and there's not a...
And it's hard to find somebody who will take a senior snake.
Yeah. But truly, like, if you are really interested in a snake, we say this with love. There is no judgment because we know these groups. Consider finding a local munch, because
you're not even telling me what a munch is.
Nope, just look up local munch. This is the crowd for you, because you may not realize it, but you are into understanding boundaries.
Also, what was it like we were talking about? Like, everyone I know...
Body harness, Glory. Snakes are a living body harness that people don't want to admit to, and they'd be just as happy with a shibari rope body harness as well.
So there's this, it says, I am a trained shibari master. There's this intersectionality of people who want to be tied up with rope and people who have snakes as pets. Hence again, no, don't bring your snake. I don't have a place to hold a snake. What are we going to do? Put her in a mixing bowl? Like, no. I don't have boxes big enough, like, appropriate for a snake. Like, I don't want to put them in a little tiny box that's too small for, like, a python. They're gonna be wearing their snake to my house. And I'm like, I do not just have random terrariums around, okay? Believe it or not, y'all, I had to actually get one. I had to keep an empty aquarium at my house with a heat lamp, just in case people, my subjects, brought their snake with them. Now, it did not have a lid, and most snakes you can honestly just trust because they'll be happy to go back to their sun lamp whenever they want. So yeah, I don't really mind them wandering around my house as long as they are not compatible with cats. And my cat, Andy, I had her as a kitten, and then I had her when she was middle-aged. And in the meantime, the owner between, the 2 times I had Andy, had her declawed. So again, Andy's not going to hurt the snake, even if she smacks it. She's been declawed. I would not have declawed her. I wanted to just put those little plastic... It's the Lee press-on nails of cats, okay? It's a little, and then that way,
silicone.
Yeah. They glue them on, and then, Anyway, that is what I want. But anyway, that's a whole nother matter. So I was not worried that my cat was going to hurt anybody's snake, but it was like there are some snakes that are antagonistic toward cats. Probably because they've had negative reactions from cats, and I get that. But yes, essentially, yes, I had subs coming over, and some of them were wearing their snake, and I had to just start like keeping a terrarium with a heat lamp in my house to house their snakes because they're all wearing snakes.
But yeah, like one thing we have really noticed is that people are really into snakes. For whatever reason, there's a very large commonality in the Venn diagram with people who are into BDSM. And what most of BDSM really is about is understanding your boundaries and how to establish boundaries with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And then to experiment with, are you comfortable with the boundary you set? For, and then trusting someone else to, to abide by your boundary. Of like, that is what's really going on here a lot. And for whatever reason, snakes really fall into that crowd. And then we notice once they are no longer interested in the boundary stuff, they also tend to lose a lot of interest in snakes. But there's always a new crowd. But yeah, so we wanted to mention that. But yeah, snakes are fine. They like being petted too.
Well, and that is separate from anybody with an interest in herpetology.
Yes.
Wanting to study snakes, reptiles, whatever cold-blooded creatures for academic purposes, it's not, what we're saying is not necessarily true of people who have an academic interest, or even people who have an academic interest in studying birds or, modern dinosaurs. Like, if you are studying them for scientific or academic reasons, that is not necessarily what we're saying about pet ownership is not necessarily accurate.
Yeah.
For all the reasons people get into studying these animals from a more scientific reason or interest. And because there's a lot more. Like, I've known many herpetologists and those who specialize in anything from turtles to snakes. We live in South Mississippi. So it turns out if you're interested in herpetology, then you're probably going to end up down here at some point, it seems like. And that is because if you're interested in reptiles or really cold-blooded animals in general, you're probably going to end up in South Mississippi at some point because it is a wild wonderland. And for the most part, it is still less dangerous to be here and study than, say, Louisiana or Florida, where there are, like in Florida, they have both alligators and crocodiles. And in Louisiana, they have a lot of alligators, have I mentioned? Plus, enormous snapping turtles. Like 70-pound snapping turtles.
Or bigger.
And also, alligator turtles are a real thing and are dangerous. I have seen the scars taking a chunk off someone's calf. Like, he didn't know, and it snuck up behind him and then took a chunk.
Versus gopher tortoises that are protected, which is fascinating at the army base around here. But if you want to know how much humans, like cute things, they will call each other to come quickly when the gopher tortoises start hatching because they are cute little baby tortoises. And everyone wants to see them who takes care of them when they are just the newborn babies. Again, tortoises and turtles are another good pet for people who don't want, constant regular interaction. Look at that little one.
Look at these little babies.
Do you want a regular pet, but not one that requires a lot of maintenance?
Look at these little babies.
Turtles and tortoises are often actually a good option.
Oh, here we go. Look at that tininess. It's so cute.
The part I always find ironic is
yes, so everybody calls, like literally all the experts in our area will call each other when it's, the running of the baby gopher tortoises to see if they're going to be safe.
There's a lot of different kinds of turtles around here, though. And And I find it hilarious. The people who are most interested in tortoises and turtles are definitely on the gray spectrum. And
here you go.
Look at the babies.
Look at the babies.
And as far as we can tell, there are a few creatures in this world hornier always than turtles and tortoises. They move surprisingly fast when there is another tortoise or turtle they are interested in. Look at the baby.
Look at the baby.
This is where they got, baby Yoda from.
Yeah. Look at the little babies. They're so cute. All the cuteness, y'all.
And they can move pretty fast.
Oh, these can book it. I have seen these babies, and they can book it quick. When they are properly motivated, and fear does not as strongly motivate them as interest in in a possible mate. They're very
the cartoon, the Fox cartoon series, Housebroken, very accurate about pets.
Again, please do not paint turtles. Thanks. All the little gopher babies.
Also, they can feel whatever you do to their shell, so you can actually tickle a turtle.
Yes.
Or pet a turtle.
But yeah, there's where we live in South Mississippi is a special place for gopher turtle breeding. And there will be so many babies all at once. This is amazing.
Which definitely has some interesting impacts and environmental studies, because it's also where it's one of the main places they do tank training in the Army, is where the gopher tortoises grow up. So it's always interesting who is allowed on which land.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, tortoises are definitely and turtles are a good. I want a pet. I want a pet I can directly interact with, but doesn't need a lot of maintenance. If you don't have a lot of interaction to give at the time, and there's going to be days just you're not going to be there for.
Yeah, like tortoises can be very useful as pets if you want to have something living with you, and you preferably at least have a backyard and access to your yard, like a very large doggy door, so that the tortoise can go in and out whenever it wants. Then they can be a very good pet most of the time, because they can go days without direct interaction with a human, particularly if, again, you have an automatic feeder and it is a tortoise appropriate feeder, i.e. so it can get to the food and the water, and say a water fountain, one of those circulating, aerating, filtering water fountains, then it can go days without human interaction.
But I mean, especially if you raise them from very young, they don't mind hanging out with a human. Just sitting in your lap, or just sitting beside you. They're also cool with that, especially if you keep your hand on them, so it's something warm.
Yeah, you just have to remember that you have to make a place for them in the wintertime in your house. And they'll probably need a heat lamp because, again, they're not generating the same kind of body heat.
Although, depending on the one, as CB brings up, they do hibernate.
From what I understand, if you live in California, they don't really hibernate, or Southern California, even though it does get kind of cold in the wintertime, they don't properly hibernate. It depends on where you live.
Yeah.
because it
Oh,
needs to get down to a certain temperature to signal to their body that it's time to hibernate. And not all locations have that. So it just depends on the creature, the animal, the species. Even like what we're talking about tortoises, it just depends. Not all of them hibernate as much as they go into sort of a low metabolic stasis.
and if you want something a little bit more active, but similar level of interaction, I mean, there's several other lizards. I mean, as we mentioned earlier at the beginning of the show, blue-tongued skinks are a popular interactive, pet.
Mm-hmm.
They are very friendly, especially when you raise them from very young.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And get them from a reputable breeder.
yes, as well as what are they called? Bearded dragons? I think bearded dragons.
Although I have heard some horror stories about that. Apparently they nip.
Yeah. Again, you need to look up how do you want to interact with them and how often. Like that's the more of the real thought is how often and how much do you want to interact, and that they need the
I gotta
interaction.
be honest. I really have an issue with a lot of these pets being given to children. I do not think children are appropriate as the main caregiver of most animals. Children are not good at necessarily remembering to wipe their butt every day. So if your kid cannot be relied upon to remember things like basic hygiene, then pet ownership is not appropriate for them. And giving them a pet is not going to be the incentive for them to finally get their act together as a 10-year-old. No. So, again, pet ownership is still the adult's responsibility. And I think in that case, since the adults are the ones taking care of the pets, then it really should be up to the adults the kind of pet they get. If you've never met a cat you liked, cat ownership is probably not necessarily a good fit for you. If you've never met a dog that you liked, again, dog ownership doesn't sound like it's appropriate for you. So no matter how much the kids beg, probably not a good idea to get an animal that you've never liked. And so like if what you want is a tortoise, but the kids want something furry, guess what? I, as the adult, am the one who's taking care of this animal. We get in a tortoise and you would just put furry ears on it. I don't care.
Which I have seen before.
So it's something to keep in mind about. I honestly would not even leave a small animal in a child's room as like, this is where we keep the animal. Partly because many small animals are often nocturnal. Many of the things that we consider small pets, like hamsters, gerbils, rats, those are nocturnal creatures. Rabbits, they're going to keep children up at night. And that means the child will then interact unsupervised with the animal. And that is far more likely to lead to hijinks and possible death for the animal or injury, let alone possibly injury for the child. Can you imagine the child then hiding the bite mark from the parents and it getting infected? Because again, as I've mentioned, children cannot be relied on to consistently do basic hygiene on themselves. They're just developmentally not there. Even a child that you're sure, oh, but he's a special kind of 10-year-old. He's so good at it. Honey, he's only good at it because you're on him all the time. If you never mentioned bathing again, you would be lucky that he bathed once a month, okay? Like, developmentally, that's just where children are. They have to be monitored. That's why we don't let children live on their own. So, again, no, I would not allow a child to be unsupervised with a pet, because I do not expect them to necessarily be honest and forthcoming about any injuries the animal may have suffered, and the animal cannot tell you the injury it experienced, so you don't know why now that animal's now dragging one leg. And, the child won't tell you because the child doesn't want to get in trouble. And every time you think, no, but I've talked to my child knows that they can trust me and tell me anything. Honey, when a person is afraid, that is not when they are their most honest. And it doesn't matter that you have a different special kind of relationship with your child, unlike all the other parents at your child's school. The other children at your child's school will scare the crap out of your child about how you will react, even though you have never reacted that way, ever, ever, ever. The other children will still scare your child because their parents act that way. So again, pet ownership is for adults. It is not appropriate for elementary school children. And yes, children should absolutely be allowed to interact with pets, but supervised, both for the safety of the child as well as the safety for the animal, because no animal deserves to be accidentally dropped because a child was startled.
Or to
there are many adults who didn't let pick up Slick Willie because I was concerned they were going to drop Slick and that would injure Slick. Like, oh, well, I'll get you a new hamster. Honey, I don't want a new hamster. I like Slick. She knows me. She knows my cat. They chase each other. They have a repertoire. I don't, a rapport. I don't want a new hamster. I just don't want you to drop my hamster. So if you want to hold my hamster, you have to sit down and I will bring you my hamster and you will have to put your hand in your lap and I will put the hamster in there. And when you don't want to hold her anymore like that, you tell me and I will pick her back up. But I'm not letting you walk around holding the hamster where you might trip and squeeze her. Absolutely not.
But also, pets do not deserve to be tortured because the child forgot to feed them that day.
Mm-hmm.
Do not make your pet the whipping child of their, maturity.
Or your child can't remember if they fed him or not, so they fed him twice, and now that animal has gastritis. Hi, Spence. Yes, bunnies bite like a-holes. They grind their teeth on your bones. I mean, truly, y'all. Bunnies.
Also, some bunnies need to be caffeinated.
Bunnies will eat your purse. They'll eat anything leather. They'll eat your shoes. If you leave your shoes unsupervised on the floor near a bunny. I have seen people smack a bunny for chewing on their shoe, and it's like, that is abuse. You are an enormous creature, and you have just struck an animal who is doing its natural animal thing. You needed to take responsibility and keep your shoes away from an animal who is likely to chew them.
Also, some of the bunnies' responses I have seen from that behavior is to get, what's it called?
Vindictive?
Huh?
Vindictive?
Yeah. And then they will then target that shoe and they will target your stuff because...
Anything that smells like you? Yeah.
So again, not a good pet to have if you don't understand their psychological needs and you get upset at them for acting like what they are. Which is, rabbits, just like rodents, have eternally growing teeth. And so they've got to always be chewing on things and grinding those front teeth down.
Well, so do hamsters.
Yeah.
Rats, all of them have ever-growing teeth that they have to, if they don't, the teeth will actually back up into their brain and kill them. By the way, bunnies, rabbits, and jackrabbits, or hares, actually, are totally different species. And I'm told cannot interbreed.
Nope. Chinchillas.
I do not understand the whole thing on the internet of giving chinchillas things to hold, but it is still cute.
Because they will hold them. Versus chinchillas are the real-life version of mogwais.
In
that you can never get them wet. They die if you get them wet.
It's true.
Because their fur is so dense, it will never dry. And it will then cause infections and just so many problems.
Mold.
You cannot get chinchillas wet at all.
Infections.
Yes.
I think people get small animals like chinchillas and bunnies because they think, hey, it'll be fun and it's small, so it'll be easier to care for. And size is not equivalent to how much energy and regular upkeep time it costs. You can't ignore a chinchilla for a week. Bad things are going to happen. Ditto with rabbits. You can't ignore them for a week. They need far more regular upcare. You can ignore a hamster for 2 days tops, and then bad things are going to happen.
Hence
and I say that based on experience.
Hence why the school hamster has to go home on the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot leave him alone for 3 days.
It is true. So, I would honestly say that if we're talking about how much care in a day or a week an animal takes, if you're considering a small pet, such as hamsters, gerbils, rabbits, chinchillas, guinea pigs, and it's not that you want that particular animal because you're so into that. You just want a small animal that doesn't take a whole lot of upkeep. Honestly, at that point, I've got to be honest with you, a cat is probably going to be more satisfying as long as you're not allergic and your, housing situation allows them. Honestly, cats probably are going to be more satisfactory. And I say this because, number one, cats require hardly any more upkeep than, say, a hamster. But also, unlike a hamster, a cat will actually communicate with you its needs. Cats are far better at communicating with humans their daily needs, or if they're injured, cats will come to you to tell you, versus a hamster is not good at communicating that.
Yeah.
So I would, unless like you're like interested, say in a like, oh, I know, I've always wanted a Welsh rabbit. They're enormous and I love their feet. Like, okay, if you're into that, cool. But if you just want, a relatively low maintenance pet, on the other hand, I'd actually steer you to a cat. Now, there is still the issue of finding the right cat because all cats are not the same. All cats are psychopaths and they're all little a-holes. But some cats are more comfortable being held and being petted regularly than other cats. So you still have to know what you're looking for personality-wise, even in a kitten or in a cat, an adult cat. But again, I would say that cats, based on my experience taking care and also pet sitting, various friends' pets, like y'all, you would not believe how many pets I have pet sit for other people over the years, like at my house and at their house. And I would honestly say a cat is the same, if not even less, amount of upkeep on a daily and weekly basis than pretty much all small animals. Even fish require, particularly like if you're talking about like the lifetime of a fish aquarium, that is way more upkeep than a cat. I don't know if I want to know why.
Yeah, it's truly that's like asking Laura, what did you write?
Yeah, like,
I don't know if I want to know the story. But yeah, as far as like, but also because cats, there's a lot more resources. There's a lot more videos on cat psychology. So again, it's easier to understand why is your cat acting this way. And another thing we haven't even brought up is rescue shelters. If you go to one and they're like, none of these cats are working for what I want, you can just literally tell them, here's what I need in a cat for it to be happy with me. I need one with these personality parts. You can just leave that there with them, and if they get a surrender or they get a wild one that has these features you're looking for, they'll message you of, hey, we got one for you.
Yeah.
Because, they don't want any pet, any animal to suffer either. So if they can find someone who's suited for that type of cat, get them. Because there's some people who have a lot of energy and they need a high energy cat. They need, like the Bengal type cats that just so much energy. Versus other ones that like, no, I need a cat that moves around 3 times a day. 2 of those is for, food and to relieve itself.
How dare you come for me like this, Tom? On my own channel.
And so but you truly, again, like for all pets, you need to know what it is you're looking for specifically from that pet. There's different ways things are, that's also what good breeders are for, is they are looking for, ideal pet behaviors in the animal they breed so that they will be happy with other people. And then they can also talk with people who are wanting that kind of pet to make sure they will be a good combination. Just like, good dachshund breeders, the dachshunds are fairly relaxed. The ones that...
You cannot own a dachshund if you don't enjoy puns.
Yeah.
You might think you want a dachshund, but if you think puns are dumb, you're not going to enjoy a dachshund. Number 1, because dachshunds are goofy. And number 2, because all other dachshund owners make constant wiener jokes. And female dog jokes.
Yes.
And you're going to be constantly inundated with these puns if you have a dachshund. Everyone else will send you dachshund pun reels and memes and stuff. And so if you don't like puns, stay away from dachshunds, okay? I'm telling you this now. Same for corgis. If you're not into booties, you're not going to enjoy corgi dog ownership. Corgis love their padded, fluffy little butts. Like,
they are judgmental little dogs.
They
judge you for everything.
Judgy.
They judge your every action. And unless you're okay being judged by a dog
constantly,
it's not going to be a good time.
So you have to understand what you're getting into. I know some dog owners are very super serious. Like, what is it? The African Razorbacks?
Oh.
They're very serious.
Rhodesian Ridgebacks.
Yeah, Rhodesian Ridgebacks. They're so serious. They do not understand how dogs and jokes work. So you get a vibe for it versus pit bull owners. Pit bulls are big old babies. They are big old super muscular babies. You have to be very comfortable with your baby being able to bench press you. Because
yeah, if you try to quote unquote dog pile your pit bull's response is, oh, now I got some resistance. Let me do some push-ups.
So you have to have a strong personality to really be able to match that of a pit bull. But pit bulls with the right kind of owners are big old babies, and they are adorable. But yeah, we have pet sit everything.
Versus if your friend is a dork, they like making really bad jokes all the time, that's a boxer. That's someone who needs a boxer in their life.
Bad jokes.
Bad jokes.
So many bad.
Like if what's his name? Mel. The director, the producers.
Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks. If they think Mel Brooks is got some of the best storytelling of all, that's a boxer owner right there.
And in fact, every boxer owner I know loves Mel Brooks now that you mention it.
Yeah.
Even the ones that didn't know Mel Brooks was Jewish. Love Mel Brooks jokes. So anyhow, it's time for another bio break. What a wonderful time to make sure you have something to drink, Do you have a snack? Is it time to walk around? Maybe check in on the bladder? And we will be back in a few minutes to talk more about the more unusual pets, like horse people and goat people and the occasional people
and bird people.
And the bird people, y'all.
Oh, yeah.
So many things to say about bird people. We have, by accident, extensively studied bird people. And I will tell you the story of how it happened by accident. So be sure to stick around while we go and take another bio break. And this sprint brought to you by Megan's 10-minute hippo timer. Oh, yes. And alpaca people. You're right. We will also talk about the alpaca people. We will talk about the truly unusual pet ownership. It's not like totally out of the norm, but these people really are separate from the rest. So, see y'all in a few minutes. Beep. 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 New team.
Hello. So yes, let's talk about some of the less standard pets, and often how they need to be treated a bit differently than they are.
Hello, Eva.
Hey, Eva.
How goes it? There is a new poll up as well, by the way, yeah.
Eva's definitely on the just so many pets.
Do we count pets that I was given because people were moving and were not taking their pets with them?
Like the angelfish, biggie and smalls.
Yep.
So birds. Birds are social.
Birds are more social than cats and dogs.
Yes.
One of the things I've heard the most from bird owners, at least around here in South Mississippi, is they did not realize when they got their first bird how incredibly social birds are. All birds are. There's no such thing as a loner bird. Don't let any breeder tell you otherwise.
Yeah.
I've heard about some unscrupulous breeders lying to people about it, and even some owners going, "Oh no, my bird is fine." No, your bird's not. Birds are incredibly social creatures. Some breeds of birds or some species of birds are okay with being surrounded by birds that are not their species. So mixed species birds. Mixed species aviaries? Yeah. And other species of birds are really have to have at least 2 or 3 of their own species, or they start like melting down, psychologically losing it, molting. Like, and I don't mean a little bit of molting. I mean, you have a naked bird. Did you know that? Yes, I had to like knit him a little sweater because they don't make them in his size. You know, that sort of thing.
Yeah, parakeets need another parakeet at least, if not 2 parakeets.
Versus, I have heard about somebody who had an African gray, and African grays in particular really are into having their own pets. Like, it helps them with their anxiety. And so this person got their African gray a budgie as a pet, and the African gray like to dress up their budgie in costumes, and you're like, I'm sorry, excuse me, but none of these creatures have hands. How did okay, they made the budgie, the human made the budgie various little hats and collars, and then the African gray would put the hats and collars on the budgie to dress up their pet budgie. And this helped the African gray cope when the human would go to work every day.
Whiskey.
Yep.
Naming your budgie whiskey.
Was the other budgie named cigarettes? Anyway. So again, it is, I would say it is inhumane to have a singular bird in a person's home or their backyard in their aviary, because birds are such incredible social creatures. And even if you're like, but Glory, I've always wanted to be a pirate since I was a little kid, and I just keep, the toucan or whatever on my shoulder all the time. It's never alone. I am telling you now, this bird needs another bird. Birds are incredibly social creatures. Like, they don't like being in groups of less than 10 or 20. So they need at least 2 to 3 they need a total of, if you have one bird, then you honestly need 2 to 3 birds. And I'm just like, look. And again, I know it's not what everybody wants to hear, and I get that. Also, you need to think about how long birds live. Like, especially your bigger birds often live decades. And one of the issues with having bigger birds, such as African greys and toucans and cockatiels and all of those, is they're going to
Just
outlive
regular, just parrots in general.
parrots.
Like,
Yeah, you're right. Parrots, macaws, they're going to outlive you. And more than likely, no one in your family wants this bird. And it's not the fate of your bird or your potential bird is not going to be pretty. It will be a tragedy. Because, oh, well, there's some homes that'll take in my rescue bird. It's not great living, y'all. They're not necessarily getting the quality food. They're not getting that human interaction that they have gotten used to for several decades. And so now they're not getting it, and they're surrounded by other birds that they don't know. And many of these birds have been abused. So they're also problematic interactors, and it's not a great situation. So it's something to really think about of when you are investing in ownership of your larger birds, is you also need to find somebody who will be happy to inherit it and who will be in a situation where they can inherit it. So they may be able to inherit it right now while the bird is 10 years old. But what about when the bird is 60 years old and, now they're getting to a place where they need to move into an apartment and the apartment does not allow birds. So again, that's what I mean of it gets real complicated really fast with your longer lived birds. Also, like African greys and other such larger birds are fascinating to study for linguistic reasons. But again, they are toddlers for their whole lives. And not everybody wants a toddler for 70 years. It gets exhausting after a while.
And as Eva points out, just something to consider with all pets and children.
Yeah. Like, honestly, if you have a pet, even let us say you have a small pet like a hamster. You need to have already discussed with your friends and family, if God forbid something happens to you and you're in a terrible car accident or something else next week, who's going to take the animal? Like, that is the responsible thing to do. When I had Cassie, I had a list of literally 5 different homes for her, and I made sure everybody knew where they were on the priority list of this is the first person that's going to be asked if they could take Cassie in. And if they can't, you're number 3 or you're number 4 or you're number 5 on my list. And so on. I had 5 different homes willing to take Cassie in, at least in theory. And it was in my will. I wrote it up. I had found through my work, we had a membership into a legal document subscription. And it walked me through Mississippi legal wills. And it was like a wizard. Type in everything, and it was like fill in the blank. And it thankfully had a place for dog, a pet ownership, like who will take the animals. Yes, oh my God, ferrets really are. So you're all, like, I put it this way, all your pipes in your house about to smell like ferret for the rest of eternity. So it's something to think about with pet ownership is, even for short-lived pet ownership, such as a hamster. Hamsters and gerbils normally only live 2 to 3 years. I think also rats only live like 2 to 5 years. Or fancy rats, excuse me. Let me make the differentiation. Fancy rats, versus your common household Norwegian rats or whatever they're called now. That you still really need to figure out who's going to take in your pets, who's going to take in your children. Don't expect it to be the same. Some people have told me the real problem came when, say, for instance, they had a dog or a cat, and they're figuring out who's going to take in the kid and realizing the kid will not go without the pet. So now who's willing to take in their child and the pet, which suddenly really thins out the field, because not everybody, for instance, wants a cat or a dog or even can have a cat or a dog where they're currently living. Maybe because the other people they're living with are allergic or whatever, is going on. So these are things to consider and to start discussing with your loved ones. And you may find that you're in a situation where nobody will take my pet. In which case, what I recommend is contact pretty much every state. And from what I understand, most countries, now I'm not going to say anything about Moldova, but most countries have at least that pet rescue society. And it is a group of people, just like-minded people, who have this kind of pet, whether we're talking about fish or large birds, or we're talking about dogs or cats or a specific breed of dog or even cat. But there's going to be some sort of like little group of people who, when they need somebody to take in this animal and this person has nobody in their life, this group will try their best to find a home for your beloved if you should, God forbid, pass away. It is worth it to make contact with your local charter group of that, just in case there's no.
I mean, also because you don't want your pet to become an environmental disaster.
Because let me tell you, your surviving family, they may just like drop it off at a roadside. Look, I mean, I'm not trying to talk bad about your family, but it happens.
I mean, like, that's the problem in Florida with so many lionfish. Of people are like, oh, someone else will take care of my aquarium when I pass. No, they just dump the aquarium. And now the environment is getting trashed.
Mm-hmm. So it's something to think about and make contact with, especially if you're discussing with your loved ones, your family and friends, and you're not finding anybody who can or is interested in taking in your pets, God forbid that you pass away, to go ahead and make contact with that group, start a repertoire with them, rapport. Why do I keep saying repertoire? A rapport with them, start getting involved with their charitable activities, so that, they'll be willing to take in your pet if, God forbid, you pass away. Also, if you say want another one of that kind, hey, these are the people who would have access. So it is something to consider. And when we're talking about birds, even when we're talking about livestock pets, this is where we start getting into it. Because let me tell you, horses live a long time. A long time. Many horses apparently live even longer, which that's wild. That horses, cows, yes, people have cow pets. People have sheep for pets, and goats, of course. We've all, Maggie. Although those are not like strictly pets for her, I don't think. At least not all of them. And these animals are long-lived. And so to start thinking about what would happen to my pet, let me go ahead and make contact with that group. So at least like they know of me if I should pass away, and no one in my family wants it. Good night. So it's something to be aware of. It's something to be mindful of. I know nobody wants to do it. I know I didn't want to do it, but I realized when I got to that part of the will that I really needed to establish that, which meant I started having to have what turned out to be very uncomfortable conversations with people I love, because none of them wanted to talk about me passing away all of a sudden. And I'm like, please, you would make me feel better if we could have this conversation, because I need to know who will take Cassie. So, okay. So that brings us to horse people. Horse people. Okay, so you know how they talk about like cats have staff? I feel like if a person is like, but I want a horse, what they're really saying is, I wish to worship a very, very, very minor god. So I'm going to get a horse. Because they act like how people act about small personal gods.
Mm.
Like, Dog people will be like, oh no, she doesn't like that. She doesn't like to be held that way. And that's it. That's it. They're like, yeah, she don't like it. Or he don't like that. Or nah, he don't like sweet potatoes. You can offer it to him, but he's not into it. Horse people, like, instead of saying, oh, they don't like sweet potatoes, don't try to offer it to them. Because, see, if you try it, they're just going to turn it down. Horse people are like, oh my God, stay away from the horse. She doesn't like sweet potato. Like, calm down. What's going on? They're so emotional about it, and I don't understand why. Okay, having a horse instead of a car is not necessarily the same as having a horse as a pet. I mean, it's a little bit, because, I mean, they still have personalities and all that good stuff. But, like, they're not emotionally attached. Like, oh my God, she doesn't like it when you trim her bangs. Leave the horse alone. Like, what? How does she feel about bangs? So,
and they're going to get very upset if it turns out their horse likes you more.
Oh my God. I once overheard somebody at a public staple talk about, because somebody was like, what if your horse likes your mom more than you? Because their mom was coming to meet their horse, right, for the first time. And I overheard this woman, and she said to her friend, if my horse likes my mom more, I'm going to set fire to this barn. And they're like, ha ha ha, you don't mean that. And she's like, oh, I do. It's like, oh, but this is a public stable. Like, yeah, so she better like me more than my mom. Like, I don't get this. Eva, around here, people still ride their horses to school because it's cheaper than driving or a car. And that was before the gas price hike, honestly. Many public schools out in the country here in Mississippi actually have stables for horses so that people can park their horses there for the day and then ride their horses back home. So that's why I was like, that's not necessarily horse pet ownership. But I see what you're saying.
Yeah, that pretty much matches with Vigo's personality.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, versus the truth is, horses are giant dogs.
Yeah, and that's really the truth is, I know, like, I used to be intimidated by horses because I'm like, they are enormous. They could trample me to death. People have been trampled to death by horses. And yes, that is possible. But horses actually think humans are bigger because of a quirk of their eyesight. And why maybe I have punched a horse in the neck before, and then it always did what I told it to. Then again, it was about to nip Tom in the back and like really hurt him. And y'all know how I am about protecting my brother. So that horse found out I mean business, and it never got near Tom again. But horses are enormous dogs. So, like, think about a Great Dane, and then think about a bigger dog, and that's called a horse.
Mm-hmm. And the toys are the same.
The toys are the same. The medicine is actually the same.
It's just horses use 1/10 of the body weight measurement for medicine. So, but like you will usually see on a lot of medications for horses what the dog equivalent dosage is.
Yeah, that was when Cassie developed arthritis in her back because of her ruptured disc. We used to go to the co-op and the horse feed store to get her products, because at the pet store they're super expensive for dogs, but they're identical at the horse store and they cost like 1/10 of the amount.
Yeah.
So we just went to the horse store and we bought, because like it literally tells you on the packages at the horse store what it is for horses and then what is the dosing for dogs. It's the exact same thing, Yeah, they're just literally making dog owners pay more because dog owners will pay more. So, by the way, if you are a dog owner, you can go to Tractor Supply and any local co-op, go through there and see if you can find what you're looking for your dogs. You know, like if you need arthritis medicine for them, or what is it? Conjointin and
Glucosamine conjointin.
thank you, yes. And maybe you need flaxseed, ground flaxseed. It's all cheaper at the pet livestock store than at the pet store.
Or if you've got a
Because
large dog, go look at the horse toys. They're a lot lower cost.
and they're more durable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great once Tractor Supply started carrying toys for mini horses because they were almost the right size for Cassie, so we just buy the mini horse stuff.
By the way,
Tangent awkward sibling hour is a misleading title and should be awkward sibling thrower. What is the joke here? I don't. What is
through our.
Oh, haha, yes. No, that was always the joke. Actually, we thought it was hilarious. We're like, will anyone ever catch? Congratulations! After a year and a half, Spence, you are literally the very first person to make a comment on this. Yes. He adopted the horse he acted with in Lord of the Rings, and like, I don't blame him. After the riverbank scene where the horse just lays down next to it, it takes so much. Yes. Are we talking about the one that was trying to nip at Tom? I agree. She was a total bee, and I just punched her. She was. I was warned about her the first time I went into that stable to help a friend clean out the horse stables. And because let me tell you, it's good exercise, okay? And I actually don't, oddly enough, I don't find horse manure to really be that smelly. I know, like, I have such a sensitive nose, and yet it's like, it smells like grass that's like turned a little like mud. Man, it's fine. As well as there's so much fresh hay when you're cleaning out stables that I like the smell of fresh hay. But anyway, I saw her. She was a nipper anyway, and I saw some scars on some of the stable hands from this horse. And I was like, oh, hell no. I saw her going in for him, and I just punched her neck, and she slammed against the stable wall. And I was like, I told you to leave him alone. And she was just like, I saw nothing. I'm just not even going to look at you. And Tom was like, what happened? Nothing. Yeah, see, isn't it weird? Like, yeah, I have such a sensitive nose. Ferrets are such a rough smell on my nose, and yet horse manure, it's okay. It's not the greatest smell ever, but it's all right. But yeah, they had said you can punch a horse in the neck, and like, especially like, I don't have a great punch. It's an okay punch on my best day. Okay, I'm just gonna be honest. I don't have a great punch. And they were like, yeah, you're not going to hurt a horse. Like, well, you hurt a little, like you'll get its attention. That's what I was told by the stable hands.
But you're not even going to bruise it.
Yeah, you're not going to bruise it. You're not going to permanently hurt it. Trust me. You as a human, let alone a 5'6" woman, are not going to hurt a horse. So they told me if you're ever in a situation where the horse is about to hurt a child or something, which had happened in that stable before, they're like, just go punch it real quick. And it will catch its attention and make it move away. It's like if you tap a cat on the top of the head, it will like, okay, never mind. I'm so sorry. It'll get their attention and get them to stop doing. And that's what they had taught me to do. So when I saw her trying to come in and nip his back, she was sneaking up on him. It was just like, so yes, I have punched a horse. Life is weird, y'all.
Yeah, real quick, all the animals, what they really can't deal with cats, it's the center top of their head. They don't most of the time have a very sealed fovea, and it hurts a lot. That's why cats always try to smack each other on top of the head for dominance. Dogs do not like it if you control their lower jaw.
Mm-hmm. Like
you just press on their lower jaw.
Hold on, or you stick the back of your hand right here, and you just like where you're holding the back of their head and pushing it toward so that this is in their mouth, but this way, And the other way, you have suddenly have a dog that cannot escape you, and it is now feels trapped and scared. But not like bad scared, but like, you listen to me scared. Like, it's suddenly paying very close attention to everything you are saying and doing.
Because most of a dog's strength in their jaws is actually in the middle to the front. They don't actually have as much in the back leverage action like humans do.
And that is how you train a dog to quit nipping people. Is you show it what happens when it tries to nip. Like, you wait till it tries to nip you, and then you ram your hand straight into where the jaw meets while you slapping the back of its head into your hand. So you're really pushing it, and you get it in essentially in the sandwich, and now it is stuck. You're holding this dog hostage, and you're like, no biting.
And that's
so then
why
anytime you say no biting later, it will associate with this very scary moment where it could not escape you, but it also could not defend itself. It will now listen to you when you go no biting.
And that's why also, if you want to open a dog's jaws, you just press towards the back lower section of the jaw and it will open, because those muscles are not that strong, but they are sensitive.
Like, you just get on right down here.
Like, and anyone who owns a horse,
behind the canines, before their premolars, there's a gap in dogs, or most dogs' mouths. And that's what you're pushing down, or you're pulling it down, and they can't quite close their mouth anymore.
Mm-hmm. Do love that.
Too many hugs. He's like, no more, ma'am. That's why you need to give him treats after you hug him. So keep treats in your pocket. So that it's called bribing, and we just operate conditioning. Yeah, okay, yes. I've seen the damage a horse can do.
But yeah, like, you smack them pretty well. Like, you won't even leave a bruise, but they will go, oh, whoa, what? And so it's a...
Well, that is how they discipline each other. That's why how horses discipline each other, is they will sideswipe each other with their head and neck. And then they just have a kind of whoa. And that is actually how horses discipline each other. Again, it's not meant to like permanently damage. They're not hurting each other like in a permanent way, but they're essentially getting their attention of, you don't do that.
Yeah.
Or I will sideswipe you with my head and neck.
And it's one of the things that helps to know and understand each animal of what it is that they really like and what is it they really don't like that gets their attention. Like, case in point, as we were saying, cats get dominance based on tapping each other on the head because, that messes with them. Dogs, not so much. So that's why Cassie was queen of the cats, because the cats would pop her on her top of her head, and she's a dachshund. Her head is reinforced specifically for badgers. So it made no effect on her.
The hardest, toughest part of a dachshund is, in fact, their head, and it's right here. It's like the thickest bone part of their head, of their body, actually. The most durable part of a dachshund is right in this part of their skull. And that's the place that cats smack to show dominance. Guess what? Cassie would just blink every time a cat would do that. The cats would keep doing it. It never fazed Cassie. So eventually all the cats gave up and went, I guess you're the strongest. Okay.
Versus on a dachshund, it's their front shoulder. That's where you smack them to get their attention. That won't actually hurt them. Because
dachshunds will nip each other's ears. Again, don't do that. I told you not to do it. And when another dachshund ignores it, they'll nip each other's ears. So, well, yes, I have done that to Cassie, where she was doing naughty things like nipping at people because her previous owners thought it was really cute that she nipped at women. Yeah. Only women, not men. Only women and girls, not men or boys. What the hell? Anyway, so I had to really forcibly, train that out of her when she was still a puppy, when she was like 6 months old. And she would not stop nipping when she would play. She would get excited. She'd go back to nipping women and girls again. So I had to nip her little ear and yes, I picked her up and I put her little tip of her ear in my mouth. And I gently started pressing my teeth down until she would, And I was like, and I let it go and it went, no nipping. And I had to do that about 4 times before she learned, do not nip when you play. But again, that's how dachshunds train younger dachshunds. So she understood what that meant. And then later, years later, we were at the dog park and there was this Great Dane. He was technically still a puppy.
Yeah.
He was enormous. He was like 18 months old. He was huge. He was the biggest Great Dane I've ever seen. And he kept smacking Cassie on her lower back, and she told him not to. She like lightly barked at him of, no, don't do that. And he still, when playing, he kept smacking her on her lower back where she had a ruptured disc. And so after the 3rd time he did it, and the 3rd time she warned him not to, she just jumped up and latched onto one of his ears like an earring and held on. And he then ran around the entire dog park going, oh, 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 oh. And she did not let go till they did an entire circuit around, what was it, like a half-acre dog park? It was quite big.
And she is bouncing up and down on this ear. I'm hoping she was also doing little jumps to kind of keep pace, but she really did hold on like a giant earring, biggest earring you've ever seen.
Dachshunds are clampers like pit bulls. They're not rippers like Rhodesian Ridgebacks. Domesticated dogs primarily come in 2 varieties. Clampers, where they bite. When they bite, they just hold on. They don't necessarily rip the skin unless you try to pull away. And then there's rippers, who they latch on, and they only latch for a second before they rip themselves. They'll rip, so they rip skin. So that is the 2 types, which is why dachshunds and pit bulls can play together very well. They're both clampers, so they both know whenever one of them clamps on, don't pull away, and then you won't get hurt. It is one of the issues is children, if they are bitten by a dog, tend to pull away, especially dachshunds. If a dachshund bites, they tend to pull away, and that's where the damage usually comes from, which is, again, why I do not recommend leaving, especially small children, unattended around dogs, because both of these creatures, dogs and human children, are going to behave instinctively, and there needs to be direct supervision just in case something goes wrong, or even just in case somebody gets startled. One or the other will react in an instinctive way, and it could cause harm or damage or trauma to the other or to both. So anyway, so horse ownership. Speaking of, horses are primarily nippers. They will rip. They don't clamp down. There are some horses that are clampers, but they are in the minority. So again, you just don't want to be bitten at all by a horse. Rather than, if you do get bitten, don't pull away. No. If you get bitten, punch that horse. Make sure they know you're the one in charge. And don't be intimidated by a horse. They are just really big dogs. And because of the quirk of their vision, they think we are bigger than them.
Yeah.
So if you act like you suddenly act bigger, like, roar, they really will be like, oh my God, he grew. Oh, gotta go. So again, you don't need to be intimidated by horses, even though they are quite large. However, I still would not interact with a horse I was unfamiliar with without somebody who's more familiar with that horse, because that person could tell me if that horse is behaving in a way that they're especially irritated. Horses can be, how to say, unusually emotional.
Another thing that has made horses popular pets is a misunderstanding where people think horses are very stoic. They're not stoic, they are neurodivergent. Horses, because of their vision, which is pretty much just to tell them if there's a predator nearby, that's all their vision's really for, do not look at what they are interested in. They are just like cats. You pay attention to their ears. The ears tell you what they are paying attention to, what they are planning to do. They communicate all of that with their ears. So if you want to know if you've got a horse's attention, look to see if its ears are pointed at you. If you want to know if the horse is planning, as Gloria said, to nip someone else, don't look at where it's looking with its eyes. Look at where those ears are pointed. Gloria, part of the reason Gloria knew that horse was about to nip me was she could see its ears were both stereoscopic vision pointed specifically at me where it was planning to go.
Tom's back was facing the horse. Tom was talking to somebody else who was not looking back at Tom. The person was actually cleaning the stall, and Tom was facing them away from the horse. So that person Tom was talking to also could not say, "Hey, that horse." And so Tom was blithely unaware of what the horse was planning, but I could see Tom and the horse and see what the horse was actually looking at, which is always look at the horse's ears. That's what it's paying attention to. And because she was actually on the side, so Tom could kind of see her out of his peripheral vision, but she was off to the side. She wasn't directly behind him, so he didn't think anything of it. But again, this is like human psychology versus horse psychology.
But you can tell a lot by like
intent on doing this thing that she knew was naughty. She wasn't paying attention to me, and I knew that. So just as she was trying to sneak up on him, I sneaked up on her. Let me tell you, that horse always gave me a wide berth after that. And I'm like, yeah, you do that.
On to what I think of as like another of the never as popular but always a pet, fish, both saltwater and freshwater. And to me, the two things to know about fish: one, wash your hands. They often actually do like to get petted because they don't really have much that can pet them. Everything in this world likes being petted by humans.
Everything.
We are very special, and we are the best petters.
Thing that is alive in this world likes to be petted by humans, y'all.
Once it finds out what petting is like, even the tuxedo cat outside that was like 2 or 3 years feral and just truly prison rules. Once I fed it some hot dogs and got it to relax enough where I could touch it and it realized I was not going to try to grab it or anything, it was like, will now sometimes come to me like, I don't want food. No, pet me. It's been a day. I need some petting. Yeah, rub me right under my chin and on my sternum, because no one else can rub me like that. Come on.
But yeah, we'd wash our hands. So the angelfish, Biggie and Smalls, that a friend asked me to take in because she was moving multi-states away and could not transport the fish with her. And these fish had survived Hurricane Katrina 2 months under all that nasty water. So impressive. But like, if we knew we were going to have to stick our hands in to like fix something, we'd wash our hands, because fish are very sensitive to like fungal infections and other things. And that, yeah, like Smalls, who was the big one, like to swim by our hands and like self-pet on our hands as we're sticking our hands in trying to get at the machine and stuff, and just like to like pet themselves against our hands.
Because it's a good sensation. But fish do. But yeah, do wash your hands, because you know how we have the skin that keeps us safe from the outside world? For fish, the aquarium is inside their body equivalent. So anything that gets there can grow and cause problems, and they need to clean. And the other part to me that fish bring up, and actually it's also about anything with a terrarium, anything that has a habitat that you mostly keep it in. Another aspect to consider when you get a pet is how much cleaning. CB's gone, but she mentioned earlier that she's had fish before, and part of her problem with fish is how much you do need to take care of their aquarium. For Biggie and Smalls and the aquarium and stuff I made, yes, they did have a activated charcoal filter to filter the water, regularly throughout the hour and also keep it aerated. But still, every month to 3 months, I needed to change out the water with clean water that was dechlorinated and treated for an aquarium, to switch it out to keep them healthy and happy, because ammonias and other things would build up in the water that just could not be entirely cleaned out, and just they needed more fresh water. And I didn't have a problem. I mean, it's every 2 or 3 weeks. I actually kind of enjoyed doing the siphoning, cleaning up the stuff that had gotten into the pebbles on the base. Um, but it is about, keeping their space livable for them, because that's all their space. They don't, have a way to clean it out or change the water out themselves. So we knew that. I looked it up and it's like, okay, this is just part of keeping fish. But, I did like them. But, also nothing has changed in the last, while. It was cold. It was always kept kind of cool in Glory's house. So they did have to get a heater to keep it a few degrees warmer than Glory kept her house, because angelfish needed, I think, around 72 to 74, I think,
Yeah, because angelfish are tropical.
And Glory still tries to keep hers below 70.
Ideally.
And so, especially in winter, even when it got even colder in the house, it was like, yeah, they need a little heater. Same though would go for terrariums for lizards and insects and tortoises and snakes and stuff. You're going to have to clean those out periodically. Some of them it's only every year, others it's every month. It just depends. Just like cats, it's every day or two you need to, if you don't have an automatic self-cleaning litter box, you need to clean the litter yourself every day or two. And then even with the self-cleaning litter box, it's still every week you need to just take everything in the trash and go get rid of it and refresh the litter box. But
yeah, like the hamster cage, I'd clean out, like we do a full clean out once a month, and then I do a partial clean out weekly.
And that's again when we're talking about this. What is the amount of upkeep for a pet that you are comfortable doing? In some ways, small dogs don't even take as much care, depending on your point of view, as a cat, depending. For some people, small dogs are better than cats because they can just take them for a walk. They don't have to deal with kitty litter or anything. For others, kitty litter is easier than having to walk the dog at these regular times. It's just which part of the care is easier for you to do.
Mm-hmm.
And keep that in mind. For me, changing out the water every month or two, well, half the water every month or two, and then doing a mostly full water once a year was not a big deal. I just looked at it as part of it, and I liked the fish. With pets, it does help a lot if you like them. And so you do this out of love, and you want to keep them healthy. If you don't like them so much, it's harder to do all the upkeep.
Because most pets, with maybe the exception of pet rocks, are going to require some amount of upkeep. If you're not into doing that upkeep, or you don't consistently have that time and energy, and it requires resources as well, all these things require money, then that may not be the right pet for you.
Like, even depending on the state, horses are still not necessarily, incredibly expensive, but they still have upkeep. As Glory and Megan were talking about, you got to muck out those stalls, depending on the horse, between weekly and monthly. Just depends.
Most horses you have to do weekly, honestly.
But it depends on, and then, do you have that energy? Do you have someone else? Do you have the money for someone else to take care of that? I mean, there's nothing wrong for paying someone else to take care of your pet's needs.
Yeah, we do it all the time. We take the dog to the groomer or the cat to the groomer. There is nothing. I mean,
we've seen Roy. Roy is adorable every time he comes back from the groomers, and he's so happy.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with Laura taking Roy to the groomer. That's great.
Yeah.
And Roy seems to enjoy this groomer. And,
And there were plenty of times, like I had Slick for 3 years before she passed away. And there were several times where people found out I had a hamster and they were like, can I just clean out her cage? They just liked, they'd had hamsters in the past. They didn't have a current one. They just wanted to do this thing and, hold the hamster and stuff. Is like, no problem. There were plenty of people who, and like some people for like months would come over regularly just to muck out the hamster cage. That was something they liked to do. And they certainly didn't mind the smell or anything, which that's cool. As well as, yes, of course, they would also then buy the hamster like little treats and things. And, I would dole it out because, you don't want to overfeed a hamster and things like that. Also, the hamster would have, the hamster figured out after her first year that if she just hid her chew toys, she would get more chew toys. Because I wasn't going through her bedding to see if she was hiding chew toys. But she figured out that the more better she got at hiding her chew toys, the more chew toys she could hoard.
They're toddlers. They're not dumb.
They're not dumb. They're just different. So it's something to be aware of. There are plenty of people who happily will come and help you. Especially if you're like, hey, I have this long-haired cat who likes to pet/brush cats. Come to my house weekly. Have all the brushings you want. There are plenty of people like that. There are people who like to just muck horse stalls, which that is wild, but it's true. Because once you know how to muck a stall, it's really not hard. And you're mostly just shoveling shit. Yeah, it's really easy.
But it does have it breaks apart in these sort of brick sections.
And it's not heavy. Yeah. Horse manure is not heavy, dense.
Yeah, no.
So it's not like shoveling mud. Shoveling mud will make you question all your life choices that led you to that moment. But shoveling a horse stall, meh.
And then you get to go take the water hose as you just start, truly making sure to clean everything off.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, like we see with everything of sometimes it's just fun to see something go from dirty to clean.
Yeah.
You know how to do it. It's not, and if it's not hard work for you, it can be fun.
That's why I used to help my friend who had five rescue horses, y'all.
Yeah.
I would help her on Sundays muck all the stalls because it was enjoyable. It only took me an hour to do 2 stalls. And my friend would do the other 3 and then clean the rest of the barn. And it was nice and enjoyable way to spend an hour and a half on a Sunday afternoon was just mucking stalls.
And then you got all the horses just watching you going, what you doing? Why are they doing that?
It's we do this every week. You are all the youngest horse was 17. You are all teenagers to middle-aged old horse ladies. You know what mucking the stall looks like. Why you got to watch it every time? But they're I need to watch. Nobody nipped, because we had.
No, they stayed right outside the entire barn. We had
the barn chained so they could not enter the barn, but they would all be right there watching us the whole time we're mucking stalls. Yeah, and it's ladies, you know what mucking a stall looks like. It's been literally decades. You've been why are you still watching? They're this is the best show. This is way better than out in the field.
I mean, for them, it is watching that video game.
Yep.
Of power washing.
Yeah, I guess so. It's just satisfying to watch 2 ladies with shovels shoveling your poop out of the stall.
I mean, I still remember that one at the in-laws that I guess, for whatever reason, hadn't been mucked out for a month. And so I'm just good Lord. And that's when I found out, oh, no, it'd been a month. They'd forgotten to, it'd been on vacation and stuff. I'm because how much is this? What have you guys been feeding this horse? That's a lot in this stall. And they're no, it's been a month. And we kept forgetting. And it was oh, okay, so the horse isn't sick. I'm no. It
was a lot of poop. I saw it. I remember seeing that stall.
A foot.
It was a half full stall. What are the horses now just backing up and pooping in and then backing back out?
Yeah.
It was summertime as well. So the horses were not even always sleeping in their stall. In the wintertime, they were better about cleaning out the stalls. But it was summertime, and it's why what is happening here? Yeah, so that stall had become literally half full, on an incline. So that horse started sleeping in a different horse's stall with her because the horses are in relationships, y'all.
And again, some
The-
LGBTQ
There's
relationships.
a
Don't
lot
listen
of
to this.
queer horses. I said it. In fact, that was my first interaction with the queerness of the animal kingdom. And let me tell you, they are in romantic relationships. It's not all their roommates. No, they are in like lifelong partnerships.
Oh yeah. I would. That reminds me, oddly, truly, other than just horses and queerness. Um, I was hearing I was listening to something. They're talking about video games and better DLC and stuff. And apparently, The Witcher, I think it was The Witcher 3 video game, has a DLC where now the horse talks, and The Witcher comments that his female horse has a very masculine voice. And the horse responds, "Oh, because you talk to animals all the time, huh? And you know what we normally sound like? I sound like a perfectly very nice, lovely horse. I don't know what's wrong with you."
I like that. How dare you question my gender? You don't know.
Because The
Are
Witcher
you now an
literally says
expert?
to the horse, "I thought you sound, I don't know, more girlish." Yeah, the horse responds back, "Oh, because you talk to animals all the time, huh?" But
Anyway,
there's some queer horses in this world.
We have to finish talking about livestock before we can end this.
Okay.
Like alpaca owners, why? Alpacas are hilarious and they love a good joke. Just so you know, there is no alpaca on this planet that does not enjoy physical comedy.
Yeah.
And if you put,
and they can snicker.
Yes, and if you put on television, Laurel, not Laurel and Hardy. What's the other one that Mom used to like? What was the
Three
one?
Stooges?
Yes, if you put the Three Stooges on, they will watch and then they will laugh, and that is wild.
They will watch through the windows.
They will. By the way, if you have alpacas and you have them fenced into your backyard, they will watch you watch television, and they will watch your television through the window, and then they will keep banging and kicking your wall if you put your curtains down. Like, hey, we were watching the show. Put the blinds back up.
And they have their favorite shows that they want to watch too.
And they don't understand when it's sweeps week or whatever, and it's summertime programming. And so alpaca owners have told me they've had to have VHS or DVDs of the show, and just they know the time and that they know how to count days. And they know when their show is supposed to come on, and you have to just put in the DVD and watch an episode or they will revolt. And that is alpaca ownership.
Also,
and so just understand, they are also dogs. They are long-necked dogs who have a wicked sense of humor and love physical comedy.
Oh, that also kind of reminds me about ruminants of I always remember that that episode of was it Supersizers, or was it just Giles and Sue? But the one where they had a little backyard farm.
Oh, that wasn't Supersizers, but it was they were like acting out. Remember that 70s BBC TV show?
Yeah. But one things I like that they brought up, and again, this is just all herd pack animals in general, of they need more than themselves and you to be happy. That they brought up was goats. That goats will bond whoever they're near because they're social creatures.
They're very social creatures.
So if you have one goat, you need a second goat, or else the goat's going to get very
emotionally clingy.
Yes.
To the humans.
And so how this is just true for all animals that are domesticated. They are by necessity social creatures. And so get them a friend. I mean, some of them, it can be interspecies. Like, you can have a cat and a dog in the same house, especially if they were raised around the other species from when they were
Yeah.
babies, pups and kittens, that can be their friend. Case in point, Cassie and Andy, your cat and dog, were very happy to be friends. Every night they did their little gladiatorial combat scene for you.
They'd get
Their
the
performance.
zoomies at around 11 p.m. every single night. And they would do this like gladiator thing. And where they would bait each other on the living room carpet rug for like 20 to 35 minutes. And then they were fine again. But they would like do
And then it
this.
was like time for you to sleep.
Yeah, then we had to go to bed. Like this was their thing. As they would get ready for bed, was they would then like have the zoomies together where they would like, I don't want to say it was fighting because it wasn't. It was they were playing. It was very clear that they were playing with each other. But it was more like, what is this? The Roman gladiatorial? Like what? What is this? What is happening? As they're constantly trying to bait each other. And that would go on. And then it was like after they were done, they would look expectantly at me like, why have you now not gotten up to go to bed? And I'm like, because I still want to watch the show. And they're like, no. We did the show. You go to bed. No, I want to watch the TV. No. The bed. So I'd have to move whatever I was watching. I had a TV and a DVD player and eventually a DVR in my bedroom so I could keep watching shows because they were absolutely insistent I had to bed or they would lose their minds. So I had to go to bed every night.
But make sure your pets have someone else they can play with. I mean, to a certain degree now, they do actually have boob tube TV shows on, YouTube and others just for cats and dogs and a few other pets that they can watch, so they have some more interaction to do. But at the end, it is still better.
Lo-fi music on YouTube. She used to love to nap to that on afternoons.
But yeah, they're social creatures. Make sure there's someone for them to socialize with. Don't have just one alpaca. Have something else for it to be with. Although alpacas and llamas are known to take care of herds of chickens.
Also, the alpacas thought Cassie was a alpaca, and Cassie was very much intimidated by them. Because Cassie matched several of the alpacas. She was russet colored, and she matched. And I guess alpacas have fairly decent color vision. So they were like, oh, look, it's another alpaca. Why is this short-necked alpaca? We're such a small neck. Are you hurt? Should we kidnap you? And she's like, no, don't leave me here. And I'm like, no, we'll just leave you in the alpaca pen. And Cassie's like,
who wants to adopt a baby? We got a new baby. Women.
Were like, a baby alpaca, another. And Cassie's like, how dare you? You better not just leave me here. I swear I will like ruin your life. So good times. But yeah, alpacas, it seems, are also, and I asked their owners about it. They are very easy to pack bond as well, just like humans are quick to pack bond. So yes, alpacas will pack bond with chickens. Alpacas will pack bond with some dogs, but not all dogs. They don't like herding dogs, which is kind of fascinating. But non-herding dogs, apparently they pack bond with pretty well. So, in theory, if Cassie had more interactions with the alpacas, she would have been fine. They would have taken care of her.
Yeah.
She just was so intimidated. They're so big, because they were taller than me.
But really, if you've got a pet, especially if they come in herds, like farm animals.
Yeah, like cows and sheep and goats, you really need to have more than one of their species. I cannot stress this enough. So if you have one sheep, you need two sheep. Because they do not do well without at least one more of their species.
If you've got one rabbit, you need two rabbits. If you got a guinea pig, you need two guinea pigs.
The sex of that animal is not actually as important from what I understand.
Yeah.
But like, even if you have one chicken, you need two chickens. I'm told you actually need three, but anyway. that with just 2, sometimes they bully each other, but 3, and it's, I don't know. I guess in their head, there's enough. I don't know what to tell you. But when we're talking about livestock, you do need at least 2. Unless you want trouble. If you like chaos and trouble, I am not here to tell you can't have that.
Or if you want to be the most important creature in the world to this animal, yeah, just have 1. They will emotionally bond and they will never leave you alone.
But like, think about that children's nursery rhyme. Mary had a little lamb whose fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. More than likely, that is because Mary only had 1 lamb. There were not 2 or more sheep at home, and that is why the lamb followed her everywhere. Because if there had been 2, Mary could have gotten a breather.
So yeah, just find them a friend.
It's the same with pigs. If you want to be followed everywhere and have absolutely no privacy, get 1 pig. If you would like some privacy and to occasionally get a breather, you need at least 2 pigs. It's just how most of these animals are, is they need more than 1. So if you don't have room for 2, maybe don't get that animal at all. Just go visit on a farm. I am going to say it. There is no correct amount of alligators. There are people who think they have alligators as pets. They have alligators that they barely have held hostage. The alligator is just waiting for a moment to escape. There is no domesticating alligators or crocodiles. I don't care what a person will try to convince you or what lies you are telling yourself. No.
Also, there's no domesticating hippos.
There is no domesticating hippos. They are wild. They live their lives the way they want to, and they do not care that if they accidentally kill you, nobody's bringing them food anymore. That is not how they're thinking about their lives. So it is true of hippos, it is true of alligators and crocodiles. Just leave them alone. They are not appropriate for pets. I said it. It'd be better to have a rock as a pet than an alligator.
And, well, same goes for large carnivores. So, large cats. Look, if you're not studying them, don't have them as pets. They need a much larger area to play in to begin with. They need a lot more specialized care.
Mm-hmm.
Find a zoo or something to be part of.
Preferably an accredited zoo?
Yeah.
Look, these big cats, they are not domesticated. Yes, sure, they love scritches. Everybody loves scritches. But they will also turn on you. And it's not like they're trying to hurt you. It's just part of their nature. Yeah, Snake Discovery, she's very clear about the situation she's dealing with. Because, somebody had an inappropriate pet. And they were not prepared with the commitment or both the time commitment and the financial commitment. And I believe Snake Discovery has actually been working on essentially establishing a zoo. I think she was working at a zoo, actually. Can't remember her name. And was trying to find a way to have a life for her, what is it, alligator, right? Or is it the crocodile? I can't remember. You'd think I wouldn't mix these up. But again, they do not treat her like a pet. They treat her like an ancient, almost kind of not quite a dinosaur, who keeps flooding the basement. I've watched the videos.
So fast.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, they opened their own zoo because, again, the basement keeps flooding. Because she liked that. She loves, the alligator rolls. Which, look, they are awesome to watch. I love watching the videos of the alligator rolls, but no, not as a human being. I don't want to be in the room when she's doing a death roll. I've seen the videos of her rolling her toys, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's how things die. No, because one time in my life, so when I was a little girl, my father. Okay, so here's what it was. I think it was that I used to drive my mother insane. Big surprise. Mom liked Tom because he was a quiet one, and I was not. So Dad always had to take me out of the house on the weekends so Mom could have a break. And Dad would take me anywhere, to any zoo. Quotations around zoo. Okay. Anyway, so one time, here we are in South Mississippi. I'm a kid. And he heard about this guy who gives bayou tours on a pontoon boat in the Louisiana swamp. I'm 8. Dad has decked me out in a big old straw hat, coated me in sunscreen, bug repellent, and then more titanium dioxide on like my nose and my ears and my chin and everything. And then put me in one of his shirts, his button downs, like somehow this will all protect me from sunburn. Spoiler, it did not. Anyhow, and we go out on this guy's pontoon boat into the middle of Louisiana. We had to drive like 2.5 hours to the swamp. And we get on the stinkiest, smelliest pontoon boat. Y'all, this boat had not been cleaned since it was bought. It smelled like death. And there we are out there. I mean, it's got a motor, so, I don't have to paddle because good luck. And we're just slowly rambling through the bayou as the man points out all the things that can kill us in the midday heat. And then that is when he parks us in the shade in the water. Okay. He parks us under like some tree situation in the water. And he's like, we're going to be real quiet and we're not going to talk. And if we're lucky, we'll see something. Because earlier that morning, he had put out some hamburger meat raw to see if like some animals would like congregate. So, a show for my father's daughter. There were several animals. It's a lot of things. Yes, you get it, Jules. And we sat there real quiet. It only took about 12 minutes. 12 minutes, and the guy brought out a bamboo stick and started rustling the bush right next to us, which I was like, don't do it. Something will come out. Apparently, the guy was hoping one of the small deer would come out, and then he could smack it into the bayou and then watch what's happened. Y'all, it was the 80s. Anyway, that is not what happened. What happened was an alligator snapping turtle, like about this big. So what is that, like 2.5 feet wide? Yeah.
Yep.
About 2.5 feet wide. So a fair-sized one comes out. Apparently, he had been gobbling this down. The tour guide did not have to use his bamboo stick at all, because after having a lovely meal, the alligator snapping turtle, which I should probably pull up a picture. Yeah. Because I want you to see what I saw. It was intimidating. And you're like, where are we going with this? But if you've ever been out to the bayou, you probably know where we're going with this. This is what I saw. A dinosaur. Y'all, look at these claws. Okay? And I'm like, oh, dang. Oh, I don't want it. He's like, should I pick it up and put it in the boat? And I'm like, no.
But the most Cajun phrase to say.
The most Cajun thing ever. So he leaves it alone, and it's just like, okay, because it heard me go, no, as I am like trying to scramble onto my father. Like, please, Dad, no. And he's like, okay. And my father's like, no, don't do it. And so this alligator snapping turtle, this big 2.5 foot wide one, is like making its way into the water. And it is in that moment that on the far side of the snapping turtle is when what I thought was a stick turned out to be the tail of an alligator that had been waiting by us in the pontoon boat the whole time. And it snatched the alligator snapping turtle. And the alligator snapping turtle, you can see these claws, starts trying to fight its way, to which, what is the alligator's response? Let's death roll this. And starts death rolling in the shallow part of the bayou. And I'm like, oh, and the guy's like, oh, nuts. And it's trying to start up the motor. Why is it in this moment the motor floods? The motor floods. It's not, I'm like, why are we, do we have a paddle? And the guy's like, all it's got is the bamboo stick. And I'm like, try to push us off the bayou, try to push us into more of the middle part of the bayou to the deeper water so that we can at least float away. To which the alligator's like, what a great idea. Let's go to the middle part of the bayou together. And ended up pushing our boat with it into the middle part of the bayou while it death rolls. And at one point, it almost tipped our boat. And I'm like, ah! And I scream. Let me tell you, my scream echoed. Birds flew up through the canopy. The alligator and the alligator snapping turtle were like, oh, what was that? And for a minute, stop. And it is in that moment that the man goes, shoom. Oh, it starts. And we're like, drive away, drive away. And the guy's like, push on the alligator. Push us away. We're stuck. And I'm like the one holding the bamboo. And I'm like, trying to push like I had seen gondola drivers do from Venice. Pushing, to which the alligator was like, okay, unlocks its grip on the alligator snapping turtle and snaps my bamboo stick in two, which is like leaves me 2/3 of it. And I'm like, no. And the guy's like, it's enough, we can go. And turns this thing around. And that is how we leave. And nobody said a thing for, I don't know, it probably wasn't that long, but it felt like eternity. I'm just saying. I didn't talk. Dad was like, well, as he pat me, that was an adventure to not ever tell your mother. And I was like, can we go home now? Dad's like, yes, let's go home. The guy's like, well, you technically still have like 30 minutes to tour. And I'm like, I want to go home. Let us go to the car, Father. Dad's like, yeah, I think our adventuring is done. He's like, okay. We get back into the car, and the guy's like, well, I hope you thought your $30 was worth it. And Dad's like, she'll never forget. Bye. And on the 2.5 hour drive home, Dad's like, if you didn't want to tell your mother about this, you don't have to. And I was like, I thought that man was going to pull that alligator turtle out and put it in the boat with us, and I was going to die by claws. And then that alligator was like, hungry, hungry alligator. And Dad's like, that alligator snapping turtle was full of hamburger meat. I was like, I don't think that man knows what he's doing. And that was all we said for the rest of the hour to get back home, where Mom had dinner ready. She's like, how did it go? I was like, I am dirty. And I went and washed my face and hands and neck and everything. All I could smell was the bayou. All I could smell was the bayou. And Mom was like, so how was it? And I was like, it was hot out there. We both just decided to never tell my mother. My mother died never knowing that I was literally caught in an alligator death roll at 8 years old because men don't make the best decisions sometimes. So again, I just want to leave y'all with these parting thoughts. Look at how life and safe your life is. Isn't that lovely? Please don't get alligators as pets. There is no size that's an appropriate size for an alligator as a pet because they don't die. They don't know how. They live forever. They will eat Chryslers. We know this for a fact because people have caught alligators that had car parts in their belly that they theorized had been in their belly for 20 years and it still did not kill the alligator.
Yep.
There is no kind of alligator, no breed of alligator that is an appropriate pet. Rocks make better pets than alligators. And also stay away from alligator snapping turtles. They are scary as all get out, and let them have the fights with the alligators. That is not your business. Yes, the motor was having a horror movie. It was awful. So anyhow, Tom, do you have any parting thoughts? Aren't you so glad that you were too young to go on my father's insane adventures? Our father's insane. It was the same father. We shared the genetics. Tom just got saved from stupidity. I was the experimental child.
No, Dad took me on some similar dumb.
Oh, I thought I saved you.
But I too like, yeah, I'm not talking about them.
They're both dead, so.
But to me, at the end, what we were talking about on today's show is you are human. If you are watching this show, part of being human is a need to socialize and to be able to care for others.
Like it's wired into your brain. You can't not have it.
If you don't get to care for others, you will hurt yourself, literally.
Or you will adopt toxic people. It is better to have a non-toxic pet than a toxic human in your life.
And we are more than happy, just like the jobs, to, if you're ever not sure exactly what it is that really fits you and your personality, we're more than happy to chat with you and find what it is that really works best for you as a pet. Because a good pet's wonderful, a bad pet is as bad as a toxic friend. It doesn't benefit you. So find what works.
Like for me, I'm going to tell you right now, I do not make a good bird pet person. I cannot handle the squawking. Oh my God. I will lose my dang mind from the squawking. I hate the squawking. So much squawking. I cannot handle it. It's just like with barky dogs. I don't like yappy dogs, which meant I had to do a lot of training on Cassie because dachshunds like to bark, which I did not know. And also, I did not pick Cassie. Cassie was a rescue that my now ex-husband got and surprised me with. I would not have picked a dachshund. As again, I do not like yappy dogs. And she yapped a lot when she was a puppy. But I would still say that pet ownership, appropriate pet ownership, is a far more fulfilling experience than possibly taking in toxic human beings. And it does satisfy our need to nurture and our need to not feel alone in this world. It cannot satisfy all of our needs as human beings, but like pet ownership cannot, but it can help. And remember, we're trying a good, better, best mentality. What's a good option? All right. What's a better option? What's the best option? We're doing what we can in this dystopian hellscape. But I mean, if goat ownership is right for you, mazel tov. I would like pictures. Send me lots of pictures and videos of goat antics. I love them. Next week, June 27th, we're going to be talking about food. Tom, would you like to mention what it is your original idea on this one is? Blank. Yep. Tom is what we like to call in the business a pantser.
Well, really, what it's for is it's food and cooking for neurodivergents. You know, our crowd. So say we're going to share again tips and tricks we've learned. Hopefully, y'all will bring some of your own tips and tricks you've learned for how to keep yourself fit and fed and happy and healthy. Really, at the rate a lot of popular food brands are going, they are making me very crunchy granola more than I want to be or plan to be.
Everybody becomes a hippie eventually.
Like, I don't like how they've changed the recipe for Pringles. I just don't enjoy the flavor of them as much now.
Or how they changed the recipe for the chocolate and Reese's.
Yeah. Oh.
Why doesn't it melt right in my mouth anymore? This is creepy.
So we're going to talk about, the foods we do enjoy. How do you cook for yourself, especially when you are exhausted? Glory has been finding good recipes on Dinnerly of these very simple recipes that so far have been surprisingly tasty, that don't require a lot of effort and mental energy to make. And you can get them as part of a what do you call it? A home delivery meals kit service. But these are all simple ingredients. You can just keep all these at home and get, Walmart or Target to send you the ingredients and make them whenever. It doesn't take a lot to make these meals. And that's what we like, because in general, homemade food is better for you just because it has not been around so many other people while it is being made. And so your immune system has less to deal with. And you can also better control the quality of the ingredients. Glory has almost no tolerance now for gums and thickeners. Oh my God, this has made a lot of foods trickier. But finding out what works. But that's what I want to talk about with food is you probably have more food requirements than the quote unquote average person, than a neurotypical person. So we're going to talk about how to work this into your life. I mean, because let's be honest, happy food does mean a happier person.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, one of the things they don't tell you about becoming an adult is how much of your life will be spent keeping yourself and those you care for fed. Like, this takes up a lot more time than they ever indicate to us growing up.
I like to see Tom's face when I ask what's for dinner. How to destroy my little brother in 3 words or less. What's for dinner? Because he's just like, I've given up the will to live. This is it. And I'm like, would you like me to propose what we have for dinner? So yes, our current meal plan is posted under Meal Plan Geekery in Unicorn Council Discord server if anybody's interested. I'm working on posting our version of the recipes that we have made and what we ended up making, how it worked out. And we're going to continue this adventure because I'm slowly physically doing better stamina wise. So I'm cooking a little bit more. But I have still very limited stamina. And I can only stand so long before I start experiencing spasms. So it's definitely cooking for the tired and exhausted.
I mean, for some people, meal planning and prep is how you get that dopamine. That is, always difficult for a lot of neurodivergents.
Yeah, I very much enjoy meal planning.
She really does. Like, there's no way to. It's always understated when she says this line, how much she enjoys meal planning. Her life is diminished that she is not a professional caterer.
That's what I wanted to be when I was a teenager. I wanted to be a professional caterer.
That's how much Glory loves meal planning.
And I like preparation too. I like to make food. But I like to make food in bulk.
And I'm a decent, assistant for her because I actually enjoy cutting up vegetables and other things.
That's the part I hate. I hate sous chefing.
Again, you have that, oh, my soul is hurt. That's another good, interesting part to discuss I hadn't thought about for Monday's show.
Mm-hmm.
It's one you and Spence definitely have a lot more experience about, is that pantry building.
Mm-hmm.
Supplies, so you're always ready.
You just eat out of your pantry for weeks, months, years. All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up. If you'd like to, come and join us in the Unicorn Council Discord server in the Clubhouse for voice chat. Afterwards, I'll be playing Don't Starve Together, and I think Tom will be making something for dinner. I have no idea.
Yep.
So we will see you next Monday, where we will talk about food. And this Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on our Twitch stream is where we will get ready for Monday's show. If you want to be part of that conversation, we'd love to have you. Yes. Relatable content.
That's definitely one pitch for it.
Mm-hmm. Well, without further ado, I shall wave you all off and see you, at least see some of you, in the Discord voice chat in a moment. Bye-bye.